How is this going to lower the price of eggs is the question I find myself asking repeatedly as I look at the news nowadays.
Gas prices too. Shit, milk prices too.
Everything's more expensive. I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Energy prices more expensive, especially if these tariffs eventually go into place. It's bad out here, folks.
Look, I was told that on day one, egg prices would be lowered. My egg prices going into January 21st, like $2.89.
Yeah.
$2.89 pre-election.
And the central question of this episode will be, how is this going to lower the price of eggs? Or just baseline foundational goods that we need to live?
Because, guys, frankly, I'm struggling. I was told that everything this administration was going to do was going to make prices lower for consumers. I was told that was the number one priority, is to make prices low and make the economy boom. Frankly, I feel like my real wages have decreased.
That's what I'm saying. I can't afford as much as I used to. But before we get into that, I do want to take some time, because this, again, entire episode dedicated to the shenanigans Trump is doing.
Yep.
Trump and Elon Musk, of course, because Elon Musk is kind of like his henchman. Or
the real president in some instances.
Yeah,
like
maybe
his
the real
son
president,
told Trump behind the Resolute desk. Did you see that clip?
Yeah.
That shit was gas. I don't know if it's like actually real, or if somebody like dubbed a baby voice over it saying you're not the president, but I'm going to believe it because it fits my narrative.
I think they're like lip reading type thing.
Yeah, but it fits my narrative, so I'm going to believe it.
Elon Musk using a human shield is crazy.
Oh my God, I know.
And like, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's parading that kid around as a human shield.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And he just had another baby. That's another discussion for another time. Did you see that this week?
Yeah, with a conservative influencer.
I swear to God, he goes crazy about how there's like a population crisis all the time on Twitter, how people need to have more babies. And it's honestly, at this point, it is just to justify his breeding kink. I can't see it any other way.
And I learned that a lot of them, actually, it might not be a breeding kink, because I learned that a lot of the like children that he's fathered have been sort of, I don't know, created through IVF.
Interesting.
I guess would be the word.
Really?
And like apparently through IVF you can choose the gender, and he often chooses for them to be men or male.
You know, honestly, father is kind of a like loose term in this situation.
Yeah. Considering
that he's got like one kid that he hangs around with.
Right. But again, before we get into the central question of this episode being how is this lowering the price of eggs, I do want to take a moment to talk about our opposition party.
Yeah.
The one organization that is at present supposedly equipped or has the infrastructure to respond to what the Republicans and Trump and Musk are doing.
Yes.
Because they're a central component here. It's a two-party system.
It is.
We got one party in complete control, doing basically whatever they want, violating the law.
Lever of power.
At every single turn. But we got another party, and their role right now is what we should be talking about as well. And we got a couple of stories from this week about the Democratic Party, and they revolve around one man.
Yeah.
Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in the House of Representatives.
Look, we've been Hakeem haters since day one.
Oh my God, I feel vindicated seeing this week of stories from him.
But it's never been this bad.
No, not at all.
Like at most, it's been like corny, like the ABCs of MAGA. Corny. Ew, turn the TV off.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But this is just you shouldn't be in power. You should be nowhere near the party leadership after this week.
And then, of course, during the election, he wasn't pulling any of the strings. It was just Nancy Pelosi orchestrating all of it.
Yep.
He had nothing to do with the sort of inner workings of the party. But now it seems like he is fully in his role as minority leader or leader of the Democratic Party, at least in the House of Representatives. And a couple of stories have involved him. First of all, there's been a bunch of liberal groups, and I mean liberal groups. I'm not talking like leftists or anti-Zionists or anything like that. Yeah, these are liberal organizations that have been contacting the Democratic Party, orchestrating millions and millions of calls to Democratic representatives, basically saying, we want you to do something, like push back against them in some capacity. And there was a report from Axios, a sort of insider scoop, where apparently Hakeem Jeffries is pissed about all of these calls that they're getting, and he was described as being very frustrated that people are trying to, quote, stir up a more confrontational opposition to Trump.
Like
that's the quote.
At that point, what are you doing? Isn't like the essence of this that he's really frustrated that people are just calling their representatives?
Yeah, he's like
to ask them to do anything.
He's saying you should call the Republicans.
Brother,
Doug, we voted for you guys.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if they're calling you,
like we're your constituents. You know what I mean?
Man,
yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. So he of course rejected the characterization. He said that wasn't true. Richie Torres was quoted saying, "I reject and resent the implication that congressional Democrats are simply standing by passively." Of course, I don't see how you could describe them as doing anything else.
They quite literally stood by passively while one skinny white guy blocked the door to the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Could have just walked around him.
Yeah. And then the other story sort of related to Hakeem Jeffries and the House Democrats is out of Politico. They are establishing what they're calling a rapid response team.
Oh.
To respond to basically everything that Trump is doing. They're calling it a rapid response task force in litigation working group. And it involves, first of all, I want you to guess who's on this committee. Could you guess
Jerry
one of them?
Connolly?
Yep.
Well, guys, come on. Like, let's be fair. He's been there for a while. He earned this.
He earned this.
He deserves this. He's been on in this party for 16 years?
Yeah.
He's put in the work.
74 years old or something like
so
that.
it's Jerry Connolly.
Uh-huh.
Is it Richie Torres too?
Richie Torres is not on it, but another one on this committee, older than Jerry Connolly.
No.
Jerry Connolly's a co-chair. Another co-chair is Representative Rosa DeLario from Connecticut. She's the 81-year-old woman, I think, with purple hair. You seen her before?
I don't think so. I think I've heard the name, though.
Yeah, but she's very old. And then Jamie Raskin, who is like 60-something. But, thankfully, the task force is chaired by a 40-year-old. Representative Joe Neguse from Colorado.
Who the fuck is that?
I don't know.
Who are these people, man? That's another huge problem with the Democrats is like none of them are interesting in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
There's very few that I can actually name. And I feel like, I pay attention to these kind of things more than most people. None of these people just get out there and try to actually message, except like AOC, Bernie Sanders. I don't see any of these fuckers doing interviews.
No, not at all.
Being contentious in any way, shape, or form.
And then when Jeffries does do a press conference, he says some shit like, we have no leverage. What can we do?
I can't believe he literally said that. He said, well, the Republicans, they do have a mandate. They won. We don't have any leverage. We don't have the power. Brother, yell at them.
Mm-hmm.
We've been
Get in the way,
for
man.
years to yell at them. What Mitch McConnell doing? He didn't have any power.
Like, get in the way. Maybe in the Senate, we shouldn't just be fast tracking some of the cabinet appointments that seem less bad than like RFK or Tulsi Gabbard.
Just because you're gonna have to work with them. You don't have to. You can wait. You can delay how long you have to work with them for. And that'd be pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it a lot later on in the episode, like what Democrats should be doing, even on like the House floor where most people aren't going to see it.
Yeah.
But like, dog, cause obstruction. Get in the way. Like, I learned that Jerry Connolly, he was head of the Oversight Committee for the Democratic Party.
Head of the Rhetoric Committee.
He called for, like, when members weren't prepared, neither Republicans nor Democrats, he called for a vote to subpoena Elon Musk to the Oversight Committee.
Okay.
And some of like the more progressives like Ro Khanna didn't even know and they couldn't get back in time. And Jerry Connolly was trying to like catch Republicans off guard, but then the vote failed by like one vote, so he's not getting subpoenaed. And then he got interviewed about it and he was like, well, I think we were still successful in trying. It's like, brother, you failed.
There's actually no success in trying, really, especially when the stakes are this high, especially when entitlements are on the table. Like, I don't really think there's any bar lower than success.
Like, they'd be coming after his healthcare if he wasn't in Congress.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, anyways, the Democrats suck, and I can't understand how bad this party sucks.
I can't believe he just got out there and said there's no leverage. And then the Eric Adams thing.
Oh, yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, the DOJ is dropping the case against Eric Adams, who is obviously, he was bribed. He accepted bribes from Turkey. And then Hakeem Jeffries is asked about it, and he's like, oh, well, I don't have any comment.
What do you mean you don't have a comment?
Donald,
he said some shit like, oh, well, the voters of New York will work it out. There's an upcoming election. Brother, the voters have not worked things out recently. Donald Trump, convicted felon, like a lot of bad, abhorrent, heinous things that guy did. Widely publicized. In fact, you couldn't get away from that news.
Yeah.
And the voters did not work that out.
But like, it's clear what happened. Eric Adams he accepted bribes. He did something very illegal. He's being investigated for it. Then he cozies up next to Donald Trump and the case gets dropped by Trump's DOJ.
Yeah.
You should call that out as corruption, not just say like, oh, I don't have any comment right now.
Didn't somebody come out and say like that Eric Adams told his staff to not criticize Trump too?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
I saw that in some articles. I can't remember which exact ones I read.
Seeing he doesn't want a confrontational approach with Trump, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes. His like freedom depends on it. Welcome back to the show.
We're back.
I would say we're so back personally.
Yeah.
Everything else is so gloom.
Yeah.
Doom.
It's like a gray morning in Michigan today.
Yeah.
Very snowy. It was hard to get here. You should be grateful we're even recording today.
That's what I'm saying.
It was a trek.
You know how many times I hit that brake and did not brake?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll keep it at that. Real
That's
ones
what I'm
know.
saying. Every time I'm like merging over into a different lane, I'm gripping the steering wheel. Stop my car from jerking
You
over.
get into the one lane on the highway that's not like cleared because so many people have driven on it. You start y'all wouldn't understand.
I'm worried for my own safety, yet I'm still here recording for you all, and not a single one of you have said thank you yet.
And that's why we're the #1 Michigan podcast.
Yeah, and we're back with another episode. Today we're going to be talking about the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Department of Nothing pretty soon.
That's true.
We got to talk about budget reconciliation.
Yes, we do.
We got to talk about the rule of law, checks and balances, our Constitution, and a whole lot more as we go throughout this episode. But before we get into it, as always, I will beg.
Plead.
I'll get on my knees, proverbially, and beg for you to go become a patron. Patreon.com/HeadInTheOfficePod. We're like an inch away from our goal.
Yeah.
We're so close to our goal that Patreon, the website, has been rounding up.
And they're displaying that the goal's been hit, but I can tell you it's not been hit.
Yeah, it's not been hit just yet.
When you look at the real numbers, when you actually dive into the efficiency of our operation, you'll see that there's a budget shortfall.
Exactly. But we're almost there, so help us get to our goal. And, of course, get early access to all of our content, commercial-free episodes, yada, yada. You've heard the spiel a million times if you've been here.
And that's what it's really about, beating the news cycle. And this news cycle, boy, is it one to be beaten.
It's beating us.
It's beating us repeatedly.
Beating us and battering us. It's crazy. You can also get some merch at headintheoffice.com. Look, folks. If you're in the north, it's still going to be cold for a little while longer.
Yeah, it is.
We're getting all of our snow in February for some reason.
And they saved it up, let me tell you.
We got like nothing in December, then we're just getting a fuck ton in February. So if you're in the north with us, get yourself a hoodie, get yourself a hat.
Yeah.
And think about it. You can also get 40% off at Ground News. You can follow us on all of our social medias. Join our Discord. A great group of people over there.
Wonderful group of people. The best group of people.
And the last way you can support the show, as always, is by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We read them every day.
This week we have two
right.
beautiful, wonderful reviews, starting with, I love listening to this podcast by Queen Amut. Love this podcast, super funny and informative, which helps to soften the bad news. Also, at Rank Muffalo is a super cool person and recommended this podcast. Thank you, bestie.
Oh, nice.
Shout out Rank Muffalo for evangelizing and spreading the word.
That's crazy. Shouting out fellow Hiddo heads in the reviews.
Gas.
This could be a new trend that I fully endorse.
A burgeoning community right there. Interlaced, interweaved, interlinked.
Did we get to this one from A Stupid Socialist? The Hiddo Boys are my heroes?
I don't think so.
Is that our second one for today? This is my favorite podcast ever.
Let's go!
Jeremy Engage's political analysis and commentary is so smart and funny that I can't recommend this podcast enough to anyone who will listen to me. I recently upgraded to Sunday Supremacist status, and tuning into the boys makes my Sunday scaries that much more tolerable. I find myself cackling at several points in each episode every week, and it's truly become one of my favorite parts of the week. After finishing an episode, I automatically and genuinely do a deep sigh of relief because of how much less crazy and gaslit I feel by what is coming out from the new Trump regime, and it's all because of Jeremy Engage. Also, I, of course, condemn all political violence and Hamas. Keep it up, boys. You're doing amazing, sweeties.
Excellent. Model review. Yeah. Model evangelist right there.
We got all the condemnations in there. We got all the glazing in there, which is necessary.
It is. That's true. Come on, guys.
It's a 5-star review.
We couldn't be doing this if we didn't have a little bit of an ego.
We need it.
You know what I'm saying? If I didn't have an ego, I wouldn't think that any of you want to listen. But
yeah. Last little announcement: postcards coming soon.
Yes, they are.
For those that
folks, these are good ones.
For those that are signed up and on the Patreon, maybe our best work.
I think so.
On these so far, I feel like we up it every single time. So postcards coming very soon. We're actively working on that. They'll probably be sent out by the end of February. If you are an international Hiddo head, let us know if you got them.
Yeah. Are they actually getting to you guys?
We had one let us know that they just got the last one that we sent out 2 months ago.
Was that the Germany one?
I think this one's from Norway.
Damn.
So I don't know what the process is there. We know the USPS is woke. So maybe that's the problem.
That's probably the problem.
But or maybe your postal service is woke over in Europe.
I think that's the real issue, because now our postal service is becoming masculine and cool again.
Yeah, true. And for you guys to stay in NATO, you're going to have to defund your postal service to fund your military, even though we don't dedicate 5% of our GDP.
In the words of Pete Hegseth, you can't shoot treaties. What the fuck does that mean, brother? And then he's drinking on stage. Did you see that clip?
I feel like that was probably water, right?
You think it was water?
I think so.
See, I don't know, man.
There's no way he's sipping whiskey on stage.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Like, when you take a sip of, when you're a known alcoholic and you take a sip of water, I don't think you're going...
Oh, that's fair.
And why are you drinking water out of a whiskey glass? I hope it's water for like the sake of like people beating their addictions. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, but he is evil. In the blue suit. Looked like a blueberry. What are we doing?
What is this, Willy Wonka?
If could you imagine if Obama wore that? To some conference.
Shit he got for the tan suit is crazy. And now motherfuckers get to walk out and just whatever.
Yeah, no, it's bad out here.
The tan suit banged too, I will say.
It did. Anyways, getting into the news here, we're going to start off with the Department of Education.
Yeah. And, kind of adjacently to the Department of Education, just confirmations this week. Bad.
Real
we
bad.
finally got RFK just absolutely just confirmed.
Yep.
He is head of HHS now.
Yeah.
And I can't understate how just awful that is. This, you know what? I guess the only way to sum it up is measles and mumps are back in a big way. And RIP COVID-19, you would have loved RFK Jr.
You would have loved RFK Jr. Maybe start like bottling your sink water or something. I don't know. Just preparing for whatever he's about to do.
When processed milk becomes illegal and you can only buy raw milk, just remember to pasteurize it. Just remember if you boil it for a certain amount of time, it'll finally be safe.
Yeah, it's real bad.
Oh, and he's talking about banning SSRIs. So.
Oh, I did see that.
What the fuck are we doing?
Very, very good. Also, Tulsi Gabbard.
Yep.
Got confirmed as well. Mitch McConnell voted against both of them. That's think nice. He might be seeing death.
I saw like a headline when I was like looking through like r/politics. I didn't have the time to like read it this week because, gang, you know how much is happening.
Oh, I've been reading so much.
Time.
Yeah.
I've been trying to read, but I didn't have time to read this one.
Right.
And I think the headline was something like Mitch McConnell regrets MAGA and like shit like that. And it's like, it kind of seems like he is.
But like, dog, you facilitated all of, like, he's the reason they have so much power.
He's kind of like unironically like the GOAT of what the minority party should be doing.
Yeah. He's their LeBron.
I say that as somebody who respects the game, not necessarily the outcome.
Well, it's like Trump would not have gotten nearly as much done if it wasn't for Mitch. Like, we look at, or even if you just focus on one thing like federal judge appointments, like that was Mitch McConnell.
Yep.
Mitch McConnell gave him that Supreme Court seat that Obama didn't get to fill. Like, Mitch was their LeBron.
The GOAT, and undisputed.
Now Mitch, when he's got one foot in the grave, literally, I mean, he keeps falling down and like getting wheeled around in a wheelchair.
I think he saw the figure in the black robes with the scythe when he paused at that conference like a year ago. I think he looked into its eyes and he saw fire.
And that's crazy that he's like switching up now. He's led a life of evil.
Yeah.
Like, this man's been evil from birth to where he is now, near death. So for him to switch up now, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. Still going to hell if that exists.
Well, it's like I guess he's finally seeing something that we've been talking about literally for years that we've been doing this, in that we had these old establishment Republicans kind of headed by Mitch McConnell meeting like the newer, younger guys that are just eating their own tails. Like, they don't know how to actually play the game and do the messaging and be distinct about it. And they're going to destroy the country. Yeah. Mitch McConnell, as much as he did want to destroy the country, he wanted to like destroy it for everybody but white people. You know what I'm saying? For like rich white guys. Like, he wanted things to go back to when they were the landowners.
Yeah. But we're kind of at the point where we expected ourselves to be.
Yes.
The Department of Education has had it too good for too long.
Well, of course, it's been woke.
Yeah, it's been around for like 50 years, and it might be eliminated on its 50-year anniversary. I think it was established in like 76 or something like that.
It's poetic, really.
Yeah, so it's time for it to go. But we've gotten RFK, we've gotten Tulsi Gabbard. I can only assume we're getting Linda McMahon.
Have to.
It's gonna, like, she's bad. She doesn't know anything about education, obviously.
She actually lied about having education credentials in the past.
Yes, she did. And now, since RFK and Tulsi Gabbard have got confirmed, I can only imagine that she's going to get confirmed. Because she's not, she's going to do a bad job, but she's not nearly as, like, crazy as those two.
And like, as much as she is probably, like, somehow the most unqualified person for this position, she's been one of the least, like, contentious nominees. And, like, the appointment hearing hasn't been that crazy.
No.
It's just been people doing the normal, like, are you going to defund anybody who teaches about black people? And she's like, I'd have to look at the executive orders.
Maybe
I will.
But one of the main things that Trump and Republicans have been wanting to do for a while is abolish the Department of Education. And I want to go through what that would actually look like, because I feel like people don't really know what this would be.
That's bad.
Yeah. So the Department of Education manages student loans, and the 40 million of us that owe federal loans would, of course, still have to pay them back in some capacity. But it's unclear what happens to things like Pell Grants or FAFSA, or if they even exist without a Department of Education to administer them.
Yeah.
Realistically, this probably pushes college students to private loans.
Sally Mae?
Which are much worse, much more predatory, and have higher interest rates.
Yeah.
So just worse all around than your standard subsidized federal loan. The continued existence of Title I funding for schools in low-income communities would be up in the air. There wouldn't be any standardized method of collecting data on things like student math and science scores. There would be no more federal accreditation process for institutions of higher education, and there would likely be no central method for adjudicating discrimination complaints at K through 12 schools and colleges in accordance with existing civil rights laws. So that would be pretty bad.
Yeah, that all sucks, actually.
I think a common misconception is that the Department of Education establishes like a national curriculum. At least that's the way that the right wing talks about it.
Yeah.
Like the Department of Education's making all the kids woke. States already control quite a bit of education policy, but abolishing the Department of Education would take away a lot of funding opportunities, which would hit low-income people.
I was
going to
say it takes away funding for the people who are already the most underserved.
Right.
Title I schools are already in like the poorest areas of the country.
Right. It takes away our oversight capabilities in terms of like collecting data and stuff. And maybe most intentionally, it makes it so they can't look at discrimination on a federal level.
Yeah.
At these schools.
And like, sorry for not wanting like, what is it, Oklahoma to be in complete like 100% control over what they do when they're already the worst.
I was going to say, like, if this goes into effect, if they somehow abolish the Department of Education, ed policy is completely up to states like Oklahoma and Mississippi, and if you live in those states, you know what that means.
Yeah.
Like,
or maybe you don't.
Yeah. But it's like if you're in a red state, you know how this kind of thing will only get worse as states have complete control over education policy.
And it's like just the Title I school funding like being at jeopardy here is like honestly just so incredibly insidious. Like that puts at risk so many programs that these kids rely on. Like these are the kids who have it the worst in the entire country. Yeah. Some of these people's school is the only like stable place that they actually get to go to every day.
Right.
And to jeopardize that is bad for society.
Yeah, and Linda McMahon in her confirmation hearing said something like Trump still wants these programs to continue. They would just be through the Department of Treasury. But I don't see any reason we should believe her or him.
Yeah.
Like Trump said that he wasn't going to cut off farm subsidy, and then he did it.
And I also don't see any reason why that would be a thing that happens in the first place. If you want all of the programs this department does to just be absorbed by another department, why get rid of the department?
It's also not very efficient. Like making one big bloated agency. That's not very government efficient.
I thought capitalists were all about specialization.
Yeah.
I thought they always loved specialization and whatnot.
Yeah, I think division of responsibilities is a good thing. Yeah. Especially for a bureaucracy.
That's
Makes it clear what
like
you're doing.
the Henry Ford shit, you know what I'm saying? Assembly line and
assembly
whatnot.
line. Henry Ford, unproblematic figure. Yeah. Now, a silver lining here, of course, is that most school funding is based on where you live anyway. So it's not like if the Department of Education closes tomorrow, that a bunch of K through 12 schools across the country just close.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's also kind of part of the problem is like, education, at least K through 12 school, is funded by property taxes, which is sort of why we need a better Department of Education in the first place to avoid like the problems in that.
Why we have Title I schools in the first place too, because the home values in those areas are nothing.
Yeah.
So we need so much extra funding to come in and help support these things, and they still end up being underfunded because school and education should not be tied to like zip code. You should not be able to like reliably go to a different zip code that has a higher like wealth to get a like substantially better education than where you initially grew up.
What was those studies from a while ago? It's like where the zip code you're born into is the best predictor of your future wealth or something like that.
Some shit like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's a fucking what's the meritocracy at that point? You know what I mean? And of course, you know, when we fund schools based on property taxes like this, students that need education the most or would benefit from it in terms of economic mobility are the least able to get it because they go to a poorer school that relies on Title I funding that's already insufficient anyway. Part of the issue with American education is that it's not centralized enough.
Yes.
There is like Trump has been talking about like Norway and other European countries and saying that they're beating us in education, or he's even looked at China and saying, you know, China is beating us in education. Each of the countries he's talking about have a more centralized education system.
Incredibly robust, and they actually pay teachers.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to sit here and praise China, of course, but they do certainly a better job when it comes to ed policy. Part of the reason ours sucks is because it's so decentralized, and we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and it's also just like a lot of their solutions just exacerbate these issues. Like when you talk about zip codes and we talk about how some school districts are just better than others because they have more money in them because of property taxes, they say, oh, let's do school choice. We've talked about it many times. When you send someone, the kids who get to like do school choice are already in a way like a little bit more privileged than the other kids that are at that school because they have the ability for their parents to either take them and drive them to school every day, or they live just on the edge of a district where a bus can alter their schedule to come pick them up should enough people come. But that just takes more money away from the school who's already struggling and gives it to the school that's already doing well so that they can buy another like fucking $50 million football field.
Yeah.
That's it. It just exacerbates the issue. And even when you have private school vouchers, because they want to eventually make all schools private schools,
and we
have
know
no
where the
public
money's going at
schools,
that point, right?
that's quite literally welfare for millionaires. Like they just, if you give like a $10,000 voucher to every kid, I can't remember who said this, but I saw this great video this week. I wish I could credit the person, but I mean, it's probably some fucking senator. So, oh, it's actually a representative out of Texas. So he doesn't need the credit. You know what I mean? He's got a national stage and we do a podcast. I wish I could remember his name though. He said that private school subsidies, like these $10,000 things, are just welfare for the wealthy.
Yeah.
They're sending their kids to these $32,000 a year schools anyway. You're just giving them a discount, and then you're still locking out the kid who can't afford that higher tuition even with the subsidy.
Of course.
And then if you're just paying the tuition, you're doing the same thing that they criticize colleges about, and you're letting the private schools gouge the government by continuing to raise tuition arbitrarily. I think the solution is just all public. Yeah. All public schools.
No, private schools literally should not exist.
They suck. Charter schools are awful. Public schools are awful. School choice is bad.
Yeah.
I get that school choice is kind of a Band-Aid solution, and it works out more for some kids than it does others, but that's kind of the problem.
Yeah, no, school choice should be a thing. It's like a rare circumstance, you know what I mean? Like maybe in the case of bullying, for example, if a student feels really unwelcome at a school, they can get away. Or maybe, some other circumstance that necessitates a student choosing to go to a school that they don't fall into the district of. But for the most part, it just makes schools poor. That's all it really does.
It makes poor schools poor and rich schools rich.
Yeah.
That is exactly the basis of it. So that sucks.
Yeah. And the whole property tax scheme is just a way to consolidate wealth.
Yeah.
It's real bad. But abolishing the Department of Education will likely require congressional approval. No, I shouldn't say likely. It does require congressional approval. So it may not be formally axed as in completely gone, but Trump could just stop all the sort of procedures associated with the Department of Education, which would functionally be the same thing. And it seems like he's kind of willing to do that.
That shouldn't be allowed. But I mean, who knows? Who's the arbiter of what should and shouldn't be allowed? I don't know these days. We'll talk about it later.
I do feel like maybe the biggest piece of this, I don't know, just a substantial piece of this is I have no idea if the Department of Education goes away, what happens with FAFSA. I already said, me and you still got to pay back our student loans.
That's what I'm
saying.
saying.
We're not getting out of that.
Maybe in a way, this is like MAGA communism in that no more FAFSA, no more system to show that I owe, $10,000.
Maybe they'll just happen to lose my documents.
Exactly.
No, we're still going to, all the 40 million, however many students are still going to have to pay back their student loans. But for students that want to go to college in the future, and the only way they can do it is through loans, I think they're just kind of fucked if this happens. As I said, you'll be forced into, because nobody can afford college out of pocket unless you're wealthy.
Oh, absolutely.
Which in that case, you don't need the student loan process anyway.
In that case, you barely need college.
But if you do want to go to college, as a lot of jobs require nowadays, you're going to have to go to private loans. And those are just significantly worse for you.
13% interest rates?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's insane. That's damn near criminal.
I had one at one point. It was 12%.
Did you pay it off?
Rate. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Glad you got out of that trap.
Well, and now I have $30,000 in federal student loans, of course.
At least those are 4%?
Yeah. No, they're a lot easier to deal with, and the government is a lot more transparent, and you can get through to them a lot better. At least when it comes to student loans, compared to Sallie Mae, for example. Yeah. Those private loaning groups are fucking evil.
Is the SAVE plan done through the Department of Education?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so that just goes away?
Yeah, SAVE plan is
goated.
One of the best things Biden did.
Also, public service loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
That would also be facilitated through the Department of Education, isn't it?
Historically, a program that has not functioned as intended.
Yeah.
And now I'm guessing won't. Certainly won't.
Just strictly won't.
Because I remember we covered it back when the SAVE plan dropped, and something 2% of applicants through the public service program get approved and get their loans canceled after a set amount of years.
Really? I thought that shit was just automatic. No, I thought it was you work at a public institution for 10 years, you just get it forgiven.
Nope. No.
Well, of course it wouldn't.
There's all kinds of problems with it.
Okay.
I think originating under George W. Bush, there were just tons of people that just weren't getting approved for it.
We're getting rid of the problems if we get rid of the program.
Well, and Biden was trying to fix it.
That's less problems.
In a way, net problems gone down.
Yeah, come on now.
Everything is just one big problem.
It's like the one big regulation we'll eventually have.
Also on education policy, Trump issued an executive order on his first week in office, ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schools, quote unquote. And Linda McMahon in her confirmation hearing was asked about this, but she could not say that classes like AP African American history would be allowed moving forward. basically saying if schools under this executive order violate it, they lose federal funding, and she couldn't say whether AP African American history would be in violation of the executive order.
And I mean, I feel like the fact that she couldn't say is just a hard yes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think it's that much of a logical leap. Florida is kind of the blueprint for this. We covered 2 years ago. Didn't Florida ban AP African American history?
Yeah. The AP, whatever
the
group
board
administers
or whatever,
that. Yeah, they were doing like an AP pilot class for African American history in Florida in one school, and it got banned.
Yeah. Ron DeSantis did a whole lot of that, and that kind of paved the way for white people to think that schools are teaching your kids that being white is evil.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be, kind of.
Yeah.
There were some evil whites in history, like, very notably, that we should learn about. But
it's just so silly. Like, no one was telling a white kid, like, you're bad for being white.
Literally.
It's just like there was a racial caste system before.
If anything, they're going around and being like, no, those problems don't exist today. You're actually chilling, despite them very much existing and being present.
Yeah. They don't want students to learn about Black history, of course. In the same EO was also some shit about supporting a quote unquote patriotic education. That's some fascist shit.
There's been a lot of fascist shit. I think once we cover the extras later, we're going to talk about the AP. Spoiler alert, I think that is genuinely one of the scariest things that this administration has done.
Yeah.
Like, it's like kind of like, I don't want to say it's banal. It kind of exists in the background. It's not the most like in your face, explicitly evil thing, but there's a lot of implications that come with that are very bad and dangerous.
A lot of First Amendment implications.
Yeah.
Which I thought they cared about.
That's what I'm saying.
I thought Twitter and Elon Musk were all about free speech.
Exactly.
Whatever, man.
Easy.
And some other education news. Maybe.
Did you also see the EO that went out this week about how you will be defunded? You will not receive federal funding if you are a school that requires the COVID vaccine?
That's crazy.
One,
fucking RFK wrote that one.
Way behind the times on that one.
Yeah.
And two, just bad. Just kind of bad and evil. So
I wonder when they're going to issue the executive order saying like schools can't mandate any vaccine at all.
See, damn near like right around the corner.
You were coming up on that. I mean, RFK's in office.
Measles and mumps are back in a big way. R.I.P. COVID-19.
Avian flu outbreak right now.
Yeah, that's wicked. I had the bird flu like 5 years ago.
Oh, for real?
My senior year of high school. I missed like 5 days of school from it.
Was that shit miserable?
Miserable. I thought I was going to die.
Damn.
I had like 104 fever. I was on the couch. I could not fucking move for like 5 days. Most sick I've ever been. That shit sucks. Damn. And it kind of sucks that the CDC can't communicate about that to any other organization and coordinate how to fight this outbreak that we're having right now. Same thing with the tuberculosis in Indiana? Or Iowa?
Yeah.
Idaho? One of the I states?
The fucking Arthur Morgan disease is making a comeback. No, the avian flu shit is crazy because it's like the only thing that might save us from that is that the price of eggs is going up.
Yeah.
Like people are going to buy less eggs and they maybe won't get the avian flu because we don't know what's going on with it. And I'm not trying to fearmonger. We bring this up every so often. I'm not trying to fearmonger.
Yeah.
But we genuinely don't know what's happening.
No, that's just a fact of the situation that Trump said federal public health organizations cannot communicate with any other organization or release statements to the public.
There's this like branch of the CDC that every week for the last like 50 years drops a report on like ongoing outbreaks and diseases spreading throughout the country. And I think like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, they dropped the report and then it was like immediately taken down and then reposted. And the thing that was taken out was about the avian flu.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I had seen conservatives talk about like, oh, this is the thing they're going to use to get Trump. Brother, it's just happening. Like, it's just happening. And Trump is making it worse for himself.
It doesn't have to happen.
Trump is making it the thing that's going to get Trump. Like,
yeah.
It's rough out here.
In some other education news, maybe more immediately pressing for you as an individual.
Oh, this shit's insane.
Trump moved to cut funding for for NIH medical research grants by $5 billion.
Yeah.
Some brief background really quickly. The NIH funds about $32 billion in grants every year, $9 billion of which is indirect funding. So overhead costs, utilities, equipment, keeping the lights on. That
Very
sort of
important things.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Very
you need
important
it.
things.
The building's got to function in order for the research
Just because
to take place.
it's indirect doesn't mean it's frivolous and doesn't mean it's not necessary spending.
Yeah.
That's going to underscore this whole little segment here.
Yeah. And now Trump wants to impose a rule that limits indirect funding to 15% of the total grant that you receive, which by my estimation is a completely arbitrary number.
It's not like super arbitrary, but it is fucking stupid. They say they're doing this to bring indirect reimbursement more in line with private sector grants. When you get a grant from like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they cap the indirect reimbursement to 15%. fucking dumb. You're the government.
Yeah.
You're the government. You're not involved in the private sector. This is stupid. The government ought to take on more responsibility when it comes to these things that are, necessary for the public good. I will remind you that public sector research underscores all private sector innovation.
Of course, yeah.
Public sector research is the basic science research that is the foundation of knowledge that drug companies use to actually develop their drugs and know how to target their targets.
And not even just drugs, like GPS was a state-funded project.
Yes.
Like the GPS system that we all use.
The internet came from public grants, came from
the
public
military,
funding.
yeah,
and
exactly.
now you just it's asinine. The government exists to pay for things that are good for the public, like roads and fucking research that helps us have medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not scamming if institutions are negotiating with the government to receive more money to fund facilities that are the best in the world to do research.
Yeah, and one of the things I've seen people like Elon Musk saying is like, some of this money is going to research that produces nothing. And sometimes, sometimes research doesn't come up with some brand new novel medication that's going to save a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Sometimes research, you find out like, oh, well, this medication doesn't work.
Exactly.
And that's knowledge.
That is so important. It is so important to understand what doesn't work. And that's honestly a big problem with research is people don't value enough the knowledge we gain from something not working.
Yeah.
What doesn't work doesn't always get published. And that creates an inefficiency because other researchers don't know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be more public about the research that doesn't work, not less public, or not only focusing on the things that are producing massive innovations. This is not the private sector and should not be run like the private sector.
Well, and because research doesn't pan out sometimes and produce something new and glorious for the human species, that's why private actors are sometimes trepidatious or unwilling to invest in certain research because they don't know that there's going to be a return.
Exactly.
And that's where the government comes in because the government doesn't need for there to be a return.
Exactly.
The government can take risks, and if you're not taking risks in science and research, you're not doing it right.
Another thing they use to kind of justify this, what I will illustrate for you, is a massive, massive, untenable budget cut for universities that do cancer research. Donald Trump is defunding cancer research. That's not an exaggeration. Is they're saying, oh, some of these universities like Harvard have massive billion-dollar endowments. They should use that money to pay for these things. Investors and people who are like privately like donating to universities don't like donating money to the people who pick up the trash every day. They don't like giving money to the people who work for EHS and make sure you're throwing your pipettes away properly. That's not the sexy shit that private donors are coming and donating to. They're donating to the stuff that they think is going to be some massive innovation. They're not donating to the fucking trash department or the people who work at the loading dock who unload all your stupid expensive thermofisher orders. If you want to talk about efficiency in this sector, I'm going to say the same thing just to a lesser extent that we have with the Pentagon. You know how much Thermo Fisher fucking price gouges shit, dog? Yeah. It is ridiculous. Fucking in my lab, we have this like acrylic shelf that we use to keep our serological pipettes. It's got a magnet on it made of plastic. Cost us $100.
That's crazy.
$100 for that, brother. I could make that for 10 in my garage with a box of scraps. Oh my goodness, it's nuts. It's nuts. But amongst the universities called out this week was Michigan's own, the University of Michigan. U of M has a 56% indirect cost reimbursement rate. And while that admittedly seems like a lot of money, I want to actually critically think about what that may be and what that may like mean for the university, why that's a number. Yeah. Because that's even high for other universities, right? They also called out Harvard for having a 67% reimbursement rate. But those things are negotiated between the university and the NIH and go to fund good things.
Well, yeah, and it's like U of M is ginormous.
Yep.
It's the biggest, it's one of the biggest universities in the country in terms of like popularity. Like U of M ranks up there on all kinds of different scales. Oh. And also it's the biggest university in the state.
Yeah, it also is it ranks third in NIH funding.
Oh, there you go.
They brought in $734 million in NIH grants in 2024. They are a productive university. They're also one of the best research universities in the world with a hospital that is consistently ranked among the best in the nation. This is a premier global institution. Like that's what it is. They have campuses, like they have partnerships with other universities across the globe. Robust research comes out of the University of Michigan. Robust innovation comes out of the University of Michigan.
It's a fucking machine.
It's absolutely a research machine, man. It's ridiculous. And that high indirect cost reimbursement rate is a huge part of why they are such a well-regarded university. Indirect costs are defined as, quote, facilities and administrative costs. Conservatives love to leave off the facilities part because it doesn't fit the agenda they're trying to push that, oh, these deans of colleges, these administrators are scraping money off the top. They're scraping money out of these grants so that research can't happen just to make their pockets fatter so they can, I don't know, fucking eat more. That's just not true. that is incredibly falsifiable.
No, administrators are scamming you through your tuition dollars.
Exactly.
They're not scamming you through government grants.
100%.
They're getting you for all you got on tuition and student loans.
There's not enough deans of colleges and like high-level administrators in these universities to even like have their salaries register against the $734 million that the university brought in NIH grants.
Right.
That's not even a question. But I will say, you want to know who else is included in administrators? Administrative assistants, the people that do the ordering for the labs to take that burden off of them so they can, do the actual research that they're hired to do. Labs don't have to do their own ordering. They don't have to interface with Thermo Fisher. They don't have to do all this shit. There are administrative assistants who are paid a modest wage that help you with that.
Yeah.
That's what those administrative costs are for.
It's like I totally sympathize with the view that that administrative costs at universities across the country have fucking ballooned and bloated.
Way too high.
And that's true.
Yes.
Right? Like I think MSU has 11 vice presidents.
And it's insane.
What are we doing? Like I sympathize with that view.
Yes.
But the way that you fix that is through federal regulation of these universities. You don't do that through cutting off medical research grants for cancer research.
You don't do that by bringing cancer back. Even better.
Yeah.
It's crazy what they're doing.
Man.
You don't do that by stifling medical innovation. This is something that will also hurt us once again on the global stage. Like in the same way that conservatives don't want us to become like leaders in renewable energy because they think it's woke and gay or some shit. Yeah. They are actively stifling us from actually producing medical innovation that will save lives across the world.
Time to learn Mandarin.
Will kill people. This will kill people not directly but indirectly.
And that's how it should be framed. Like we should absolutely be framing this as Trump wants to kill children.
Well, that's why the moment I found out about this, I got on Twitter and said Trump defunded cancer research.
Yeah.
Like no context, you don't need any. It's what happened. Because medical innovation is being stifled, because we will not see innovation at the same rates that we would have had this not happen, people will die.
Yeah.
Straight up, point blank.
Yeah.
Like it's traceable.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And also, these indirect funds, they not only pay for those administrators like I talked about before, but they're also responsible for things like keeping the fucking lights on, paying the gas bill so your Bunsen burners can run, paying for various core facilities where researchers can rent expensive and niche equipment. There's a microscopy core at U of M that you can go and you can get on the confocal microscope. You can just rent out time. I don't think it costs you anything, or if it does, it costs you like very little out of your grant money. Definitely much less than the fucking hundreds of thousands of dollars that these microscopes cost that researchers can't pay for by themselves.
Of course.
They're facilities for niche equipment where if you're oftentimes research will take you in directions that you couldn't have anticipated before because shit don't work. Shit don't work. You go in other things. You don't have the equipment to carry out things in your own lab. You rent them from a core. You borrow it from other researchers. Those are expensive and nice facilities that places like the University of Michigan provide. They also pay for support staff like animal room technicians that take care of day-to-day responsibilities for like mice. They do the husbandry. They will sometimes do the breeding for you, and they'll like wean your mice when they have litters. Those guys need to get paid somehow. They get paid through indirect funds.
Yeah.
The vivarium at U of M is paid through indirect funds. No one lab should be responsible for the animal infrastructure at a university. That is untenable. That's not a situation that can happen.
Yeah.
It needs to be this wide, broad effort. And because universities like Johns Hopkins, U of M, and Yale have these super high indirect cost reimbursement rates, they have the best facilities that can attract the best researchers that can have them produce the best innovations or the best basic science that goes on to underscore private sector innovation.
Yeah.
This is necessary spending. This is not wasteful spending. And it's ridiculous that Elon Musk and Trump and the stupid director of the NIH are framing it as such.
And it's crazy they can't see like the benefit of this even from a conservative perspective.
Yes.
Like America's made stronger by having the best research, even if you want to talk about like global hegemonic status or whatever. And it's like good for the people to benefit from this research. Yeah.
But it's like there's this underscoring like ideology throughout the entire Trump administration. And we saw it with Pete Hegseth at this NATO conference this week, where he basically said, fuck soft power. It's only about hard power. We need to kill things and have bullets. And that's damn near paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't go much further than that to figure out what he actually said.
Then he took a fucking drink.
And then he took a fucking drink, of allegedly water. I hope it was fucking water. He said he'd quit if he got the job.
Yeah.
But, like, he said straight up, we need hard power. It's soft power's over. Dog, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Why do we need hard power? This is the, 21st century?
Yeah.
Fucking stupid.
It's hard to understate how big of a deal this is going to be especially considering on the whole, it's like $5 billion that's going to be cut from these research
specifically
grants.
At the University of Michigan, it's genuinely devastating. The faculty is fucking panicking, and I cannot understate that enough. To cap indirect cost reimbursement to 15% at the University of Michigan means a $181 million yearly budget cut.
Jesus Christ.
That is untenable.
That's a lot of money.
You cannot function by out of nowhere one day losing $181 million. What?
Yeah, through not even an executive order. I think it was like a memo to the NIH.
Yeah.
Like just out of nowhere.
We're doing this now. What?
Yeah.
$181 million?
And it's like, that's U of M, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But there was some news out of Alabama. I think the Alabama Senator Katie Britt was raising alarm bells, basically saying that, I think is it the University of Alabama?
The University of Alabama is the number one employer in the state outside of the Army base.
And they were about to cut a ton of jobs because they rely on government grants.
Because that's the thing. When you go to universities and you have these massive budget cuts to the tune of $181 million at U of M, you have to make that money up somewhere. You can't just stop these research functions. You have equipment you have to pay for. You have lights you have to pay for. You have staff you have to pay for. You either have to do layoffs in other areas of the university or even the research areas of the university, or you have to maybe skim off of the direct funding that grants get, actually skim off the top to support these things.
Yeah.
Or you just fuck around and just let research die. You cut other programs. You cut humanities programs. You cut other things throughout the entire university. That would be bad for knowledge and society.
Yeah.
And the thing about indirect reimbursement that I haven't seen people talk enough about, that is very important to, I think, convince like a regular fucking person that doesn't pay attention, that's susceptible to this kind of rhetoric, is that indirect rates are like, when a researcher applies for $1 million grant from the NIH, from like a R01, say they're applying for their R01, KO1, whatever, the money that they apply for, should they get the grant, they get 100% of that to do research and pay their staff. The indirect cost reimbursement rate is tacked on top of that $1 million. It is extra money that goes to the university to pay for the things that everyone in the lab benefits from and that all labs benefit from. It is not skimming off the top. It's just extra.
Yeah, and they're just asserting that it's skimming off the top. They're not doing an audit. They're not they're not like randomly choosing universities, showing up with government auditors and making sure the money's being spent correctly. They're just cutting it off. And it's only $9 billion each year. That goes to indirect costs. $9 billion is literally nothing in terms of the federal budget.
The federal budget's like, what, $6.8 trillion?
Yes.
What the fuck is $9 billion gonna do?
And even if $9 billion like represented this massive number out of the government budget, it's medical research.
Yeah.
That's important.
It's like one of the most important things I think we should be funding.
I am cool with my tax dollars going towards keeping the lights on at a lab. I'm cool with that. I would rather my money go to that than like a military contract.
If you sent me an itemized list of every single thing that my tax dollars went to, that's like at the top of what I fuck with.
Yeah.
You know
medical, if we could choose what our taxes go towards, medical research would be one of the ones that I allow.
Yeah.
So that's important.
That is important. And it's like, these big universities are massive employers. In Alabama, it's the number one employer outside of the fucking Army. Like, this is going to hurt red states.
That's a red state.
This is going to hurt just states everywhere.
A public university.
These public universities are, like you said earlier, machines that have so much staff. This is going to hurt the hospital staff, too. As a hospital does research. Like, the medical schools are going to be defunded. You're defunding medical school. What the fuck?
Yeah, it was nice to see sort of Michigan universities pulling their weight here, though. I think it was U of M, MSU, and Wayne State were all suing the federal government for this. And I saw that a judge put a stay on the order, or a stay on the memo for the universities that sued.
Yeah.
But all the ones that didn't, like the University of Alabama, are getting their funding paused, which is bad, but it's like, I mean, red state.
Yeah.
Like, if your attorney general sued for you on your behalf, it wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of the result of, obviously I'm not going to like blame the citizens for this, but like Republicans actively hurting you.
Yeah, it's just another instance of like, oh, Republicans don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Republicans do not care about the things that actively affect your day-to-day life. As we'll talk about when we talk about Social Security.
I hate commercials.
Me too.
I hate listening to them. I hate when I hear them, whether it's on TV or on podcasts.
Grr, I just can't stand commercials.
They're the worst. And the one place you can go to avoid commercials, like this one you're listening to right now, is patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Become a patron, and you get early access to our episodes, and they're all completely commercial-free. No more interruptions.
And you could be one of our friends.
And that's arguably the more important point.
And, in trying times like this, friendship is what we really need.
Friendship's really important. And you can buy your way into being a friend of ours by heading over to patreon.com/InTheOfficePod. Again, early access to episodes, no commercials, access to all of our content before anyone else sees it. Become a patron. And I forgot in the haze of my anger about these education cuts. We didn't even ask the question, how does this lower the price of eggs?
Oh my God, I'm saying.
Cutting medical research at universities does not lower the price of eggs.
It does not.
What would lower the price of eggs is allowing the CDC to do their fucking job with the avian flu.
Crazy.
But instead, I got to pay like $7 for eggs right now.
Eventually, like down the line, medical research could eradicate the avian flu. And then egg prices go down like forever.
Yeah, not only are you tanking Alabama's local economy.
Yep.
You are like cutting funding off from cancer research. You're letting people die.
That's crazy.
And you're not doing anything to lower the price of eggs. Trump has a mandate to do this. Trump has a mandate to do that. Dog, Trump had a mandate to lower the price of eggs.
Yeah, come on, Hakeem Jeffries. What the fuck are you going to say about that one, huh?
Where are my eggs at?
That's the one thing that Trump said. That is the fucking thing he ran his campaign on, was lowering the price of eggs and then like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. And talking about taxes.
He's not even going to do the no tax on tips thing, I bet.
It's not even in the proposals. It's budget reconciliation time, baby.
Fell for it again award. Holy moly.
If you've been listening to us for a while, you'll remember when we talked about budget reconciliation under Biden with Build Back Better. And I wish we were talking about that again.
Man, we could be talking about maybe we'll get a $15 minimum wage.
I wish we were talking about $15 minimum wage,
child tax
fucking mandatory fucking maternity leave, child tax credit, whatever. No, you know what we're talking about now?
Fucking Pete Hegseth drinking.
$4.5 trillion authorized potentially for Trump tax cuts.
That's crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
$4.5 trillion. That's like more than half of the federal budget.
Yeah. The new GOP tax plan moved out of the House Budget Committee this week that calls for a $4.5 trillion increase of the deficit through tax cuts. Specifically, it is extending Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Wicked. The plan, like overall, the budget overall calls for a $1.5 trillion decrease in spending, but also states that the House version of the bill must include a $2 trillion cut to, quote, mandatory spending.
I wonder what that's referencing.
You want to guess?
Well,
I know you know, but dear listener, do you want to guess? Do you want to play along? Mandatory spending is explicitly Medicare, Social Security, SNAP, and other useful, necessary programs.
Yeah, basic welfare policies.
Things you have to spend money on because they are have proven themselves to be so good for the function and welfare of the citizens of this country. That is mandatory spending, and they want to cut that by $2 trillion.
And like big on, like Social Security is the biggest one. It's like the single biggest program we have in the federal budget. I think it's like what, 1.2 trillion, 1.6 trillion, somewhere
something like
in there?
that. Yeah,
every single year. It's a lot of fucking money that we pay out. It's also one of the most important programs. It stops elderly people from being in poverty and dying.
Yeah.
It's basically a giant retirement program, but we spend a fuck ton of money on that. If you want to cut the deficit or you want to cut federal spending to pay for tax cuts by what, 2 trillion or whatever?
Yep.
You're going to have to let some old people die.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, that's the only way you can do it.
To cut Social Security is to make more grandmas move out on the street and die in the cold.
Or just make people work longer.
Yeah.
Which I would imagine that's how they're going to do it.
Oh, make more people die on the job. Like, and it's crazy.
More specifically, make us work longer. Like,
oh, I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, exactly.
Specifically make us work longer. It's crazy. But they do stipulate if they can't find the $2 trillion to cut for mandatory spending, which they shouldn't be touching.
Yeah.
I'll go out there and say they shouldn't be touching. The $4.5 trillion number must be cut down a commensurate amount. So they must remove whatever they can't find to cut from mandatory spending from the new authorizations in the renewed TCJA.
Gotcha.
So I guess that's like a silver lining, but this is just the committee version of the bill. This could be completely remade on the House floor.
But they're still cutting trillions no matter what.
Yeah, they're still trying to cut $2 trillion from Social Security, SNAP, Medicare, Medicaid, the ACA. Federal retirement budgets are also contained within mandatory spending.
Some veteran stuff,
because, they've been guaranteed that money for being federal workers, but who knows?
Oh, yeah. If you worked for the federal government, your pension's gone.
You're fucked.
That's the first thing on the chopping block. They already think you're like a parasite or whatever.
Yeah, that's crazy because
gone.
I considered when I first entered the job market, like, oh, maybe I should look for a government job, like good benefits, fairly stable. Greatest decision I ever made in my life to not do that. Yeah. Let me tell you.
Well, now you work for a place that relies on government funding. But it's like, we've been over this before, but discretionary spending is like $1.6 trillion or something like that every year. The majority of that is military spending, which of course they're not going to touch. It'll probably increase.
Majority.
Which means, of course, Social Security's got to go. Or Medicare, Medicaid got to get cut.
Yep.
Like it's people's healthcare, it's people's livelihoods on the line.
And it's like SNAP already isn't enough.
No, it is not.
SNAP
enough.
already like actually sucks hard as a program. Like it needs a lot more money, not money taken away from it.
You can buy like what? Peanut butter and bread with SNAP? Like there's a bunch of stuff you can't buy.
And everyday conservatives try to make it so that you can't buy anything that tastes good. If you have SNAP benefits, you got to eat gruel.
Oh yeah,
like a fucking dog.
RFK's in power now. You're not gonna be able to buy anything tasty.
Oh, absolutely not, man. That's great. That dude's gonna ban glucose.
Yeah.
But I do want to take a moment to remind you all what the Tax Cuts and Job Act was all about.
Of course.
And what it was about was putting more money in millionaire and billionaires' pockets while literally bleeding you dry. Almost the explicit goal of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. If extended, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities estimates that in 2025, the Republican tax cuts will save the top 1% of earners more than $60,000 a year, but the bottom 60% would only save $500 on average. To be in the top 1% of earners, you need to be making about $800,000 a year. What the fuck is $60,000 stopping you from doing when you make that much money year over year?
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to ease off the caviar and live within your means, if that's what you're complaining about.
And like $500 doesn't even pay my tax bill.
Oh my God, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I was going to talk about that later.
Be eaten by the tax bill.
Like $500, dog. I'm not going to say $500 isn't like a lot of money, but that's $42 extra a month. When eggs are costing $5 minimum at my Meijer and Kleiman, that money's getting eat up real quick.
When your
$42 a month ain't going very far.
When your landlord comes around when your lease is up and is like, yeah, we're raising rent 3%.
Yep.
That $500 is just evaporated
instantly.
Yeah,
instantly. Everything is getting more expensive through the fucking avian flu. Landlords wanting to kill you and also bleed you dry. Everybody wants to bleed you dry. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, everyone's out to. Everyone's got a hand in your pocket, including the federal government. And the key here is that when we say $500 in savings, we're talking about taxes at the end of the year.
Yep.
This is not a $500 cash injection you're getting from the government.
No.
This isn't like some universal program. It's maybe saving you $500, what, on average?
Yes, on average, for the bottom 60%.
So
the poorer you are, the less you save.
Right. It's saving you $500 on average. That's like, it's not nothing, like you say, but it's not a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah, I got a like 3% raise at work, like entering this year, right? That was effective in September, and I think it gave me an extra $90 a month, like an extra $1,000 a year. Substantial amount of money. Like I felt it a little bit, but with like price hikes on everything already, it's already like I'm back to where I was. I'm back at square one.
That's
you know what I mean? Yeah. Real wages are the amount of money, adjusted to inflation is what actually matters if any of these things are doing good things. And I will say that, $60,000 is a lot more money to shield yourself from inflation than $500. I think that is an unalienable fact.
You also don't need that $60,000 if you're at $800,000, or you don't need that. Yeah. You don't need that extra.
Like, what can you not do? What do you need $60,000 more for? A lavish European vacation?
If you could even save $60,000 from your tax bill, you're fucking good already, dog.
Literally,
you can already pay the tax bill. I can't.
Stop struggling out here. But it's like also another part of the TCJA, trickle-down economics was a cornerstone of the Trump tax cuts. And I want to take another moment to guess if any of that trickled down from 2017.
Nothing ever trickles down.
Nothing ever trickles down. And I have like numbers to talk about how explicitly it did not trickle down. So Trump slashed the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Administration officials said this would, quote, very conservatively result in an average household income boost of $4,000 a year. Research shows that workers who earned less than about $114,000 on average in 2016 saw, quote, no change in earnings from the corporate tax rate cut, while top executive salaries increased sharply. What's trickling down?
And a lot of those corporations use the extra money just to do stock buybacks.
Yep.
To boost their own stock price.
And then give their shareholders more money.
Right,
and then give the CEOs more bonuses and give the C-suite more bonuses. They did not use that money to pay their employees more.
Yeah.
That never happens. And they're not, like, the money that the shareholders get and the CEOs get and the C-suite gets, the fucking $40 million bonuses that they're getting, that's not going to stimulate economic activity like it would if that was dispersed among the working class.
And the average, the typical conservative argument to that is like, oh, well, these guys are the job creators, so we give them more wealth, they create more jobs. First of all, not true.
Yeah.
Second of all, they only have the wealth because people are working those jobs to begin with.
And second of all, you admit trickle down doesn't work.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It never worked. It doesn't work like that.
Yes. And it's like, it's crazy because that reality right there, you and me saving $40 fucking bucks a month and millionaires and billionaires saving $60,000 to like hundreds of thousands of dollars and getting more money from their companies that they own. That's what the cutting Social Security is for. That's what cutting SNAP is for. We want to make it so that the people who are already struggling and can't afford food, already can't buy good food, can get even less food. I think we need food so that people who are already stupid, mega rich can have more money.
Well, no, it's literally like we're going to cut Medicaid. We're going to take healthcare away from disabled children so that a billionaire can have more money. A corporation can make more money.
Yeah.
It's literally stealing from one group of people, a big group of people, to give money to an ever-shrinking group of people.
Explicitly.
Yeah. Like it is a wealth transfer.
That is definitionally what trickle-down economics is. They say, we're going to give more money to these people so that they can maybe give more money to you.
Yeah.
And then they've never given more money to us.
It's always been a farce.
In the 40 years since trickle-down economics started, we have not seen any more money. In fact, immediately we saw wealth inequality skyrocket. Wow.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Maybe after 40 years, if something doesn't work, we should fix it.
Yeah. Well, it's worked for some people.
It has worked really well for the people who are in charge of doing these things. So
for people like Trump and Musk, it's worked very well.
Yeah.
So not surprising.
Man, that sucks. Tariffs are going to bend me over.
Literally.
And these people get to save tens of thousands of dollars. I don't even make tens of thousands of dollars a year. The amount of money that the 1% stands to save on their tax bill is more than the money that I make in a year.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Oh,
this is stupid and dumb. You know what? I'm a fan of punitive taxes. I'm not a fan of punitive prison systems, but punitive taxes I think needs to be a thing.
Yeah.
This fucking greed is crazy.
The tariffs coupled with these tax cuts and the wealth transfers and stuff will make a lot more people eligible for SNAP and Medicaid, but it's not going to matter because the programs won't exist anymore.
Exactly.
So you're going to be on your own, man. It's great. We're doing shock doctrine to ourselves because we're bored.
Yeah. They started bringing back shock and awe. Bro, you're doing that to the working class.
This is quite literally what we did to former Soviet states. Rapidly impose measures of free market laissez-faire capitalism. But we're doing it to ourselves for no reason.
It's like what we did in Venezuela.
Yeah. We're doing it to ourselves for no reason whatsoever. We're just destroying the domestic economy for fun.
Just so that guys like Elon Musk, who already has more money than God, can have even more money than God. What are we talking about?
Me, when I do shock doctrine because I'm bored.
God damn, it's ridiculous. But getting back to the proposed Republican House budget, the bill that made it out of committee and is going to be voted on the House floor, specifically when it comes to mandatory spending cuts, as of now, there's $230 billion from food assistance programs that's cut and $880 billion from Medicaid and the ACA. Those are the only published numbers that I could find so far, but that's already crazy.
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten into Social Security. But on Medicaid and the ACA, they're trying to justify these Medicaid cuts by implementing a work requirement to be eligible for benefits.
Yep.
This is what Mike Johnson had to say about that. Quote, "If you add work requirements to Medicaid, it makes sense to people. It's common sense. Little things like that make a big difference, not only in the budgeting process, but in the morale of the people. Work is good for you. You find dignity in work. And the people who are not doing that, we're trying to get their attention."
Or to put it another way, work will set you free. Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought.
The thing I wanted to throw in here about welfare and work requirements is that people on welfare are already working part-time or full-time.
Yeah.
A lot of people utilizing welfare policies, whether it's Medicaid, SNAP, whatever, they're already working some portion of the year. This notion that large swaths of the country that are on welfare to some degree are just not working, contributing nothing is completely a myth.
Yeah.
It's just not real. I have a stat here. As of 2023, 64% of Medicaid enrollees are working full or part-time, and the rest have either disabilities, they might be caretakers, they might be in school to some degree. There's other things that they're doing or other reasons that they can't be working full-time. Yeah. I'm sure there's some people scamming the system, but I'd rather the system serve a bunch of people and a few people scam it than the system serve nobody.
And it's they're also kids on Medicaid.
Yeah.
They're also minors and shit on Medicaid.
And Arkansas, back when Trump had his first administration, tried to implement Medicaid work requirements, and 18,000 people lost health care insurance.
That's not something that I think we should do in polite society.
No.
I don't think that's a government serving its people. And conservatives love to talk about how the government does nothing for you while actively making sure that the government can do nothing for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand.
And it's not even to mention that adding work requirements to Medicaid or any welfare policy really only makes it inevitable that people that are eligible for the program under any requirement will just be kicked off because they either don't know about the new documentation, they don't know how to fill out the new documentation. It's just an extra barrier to entry for people that would be eligible to receive these benefits, and it inevitably kicks people off the program.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, I think under Bill Clinton, he was the one who did welfare reform, a Democrat, of course, and austerity, which is what Bill Clinton did.
He kind of brought all this about
through TANF, I believe. And they implemented work requirements. They implemented all these other like means-tested measures to the program. And it did get people off of welfare, but it didn't make anybody wealthier.
Yeah.
It didn't improve people's living conditions. Yeah, more people were employed. Yeah, less people were on welfare, but they were still just as poor as they were before.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually help anybody.
And it's also like when we talk about government assistance programs, specifically like SNAP and Medicaid, not just like welfare, a lot of the people that are on these programs are underemployed. Like they're already working. They're already trying their hardest to get out of the situation that they're in, or there are other situations like circumstances that are keeping them in the situation that they're in. And they need these as supplements, like, you know, a supplemental food and nutrition program. Because they're just underemployed. They can't afford things.
Yeah. Well, and for a lot of people in this country, poverty isn't like a lifelong condition.
Yep.
For some people it is, and like those people absolutely deserve benefits. But for some people, for a lot of people that experience poverty, like they dip into poverty for a few months and then they find their way out of it. And that's when they rely on these welfare policies to help them get out of that hole.
Yeah.
And if work requirements become so harsh, if requirements generally to be eligible for these programs become so harsh, it's going to be hard for those people to ever get out of the poverty hole. It's going to make people poorer.
Yeah, it's not even like a lot of these people are in a constant cycle of like feast and famine where they're on their own and then they do bad and then they need these programs and they get off them and they can't sustain it on their own, so they go back on these programs. It's a lot of situations where you have somebody who fell on hard times and just needs assistance for like a year.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then they're back on their feet. They're back. They finally found a good job that can support them and they can pay for everything. Most people, there's going to always be some people that are trying to scam the system, just like how we talked about when Elon Musk was going after entitlements like a week or two ago. There's always going to be a subset of people that try and take advantage of a system. The vast majority are not, though. Like the vast majority of people are actually ashamed to be on SNAP benefits.
Yeah.
They are ashamed to have Medicaid. They are ashamed to be welfare recipients. They are ashamed to be in Section 8 housing. There are massive social stigmas attached to these things. People don't want them. There's a lot of people that actively ignore that they can apply for these programs because of the social stigma attached to the program.
Yeah.
We do not want a society where people don't want to get the help that they need because of that, and we don't want to actively discourage people from getting the help that they need.
Yeah. Well, another thing we can thank Reagan for, the idea of the welfare queen, never actually existed. But yeah, like you said, like maybe a person loses their job, maybe they crash their car, maybe they get sick somehow, maybe their kid gets sick, and of course, healthcare is not free in this country, so you got to pay for that. There could be any number of reasons that somebody falls on hard times economically.
Maybe they have a massive amount of medical debt that wasn't their fault, and before the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they couldn't get an apartment to rent.
Yeah, straight up, maybe they're just getting scammed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and there's nothing they can do about it because there's no government body to protect them anymore.
Which now there won't be anymore. That's a whole. Do we even have that in the show notes? Elon Musk is trying to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
We talked about that last week. Yeah.
Fucking insane, dog.
And he's succeeding. Yeah.
This Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is, I'm pretty sure, the reason why, like, when you go to get medical debt can't be pulled on a credit report.
Yes. Yeah. That was the CFPB.
Explicitly good.
The CFPB was, I think, either working on or already implemented a $8 limit for overdraft fees from banks. And like overdraft fees, especially if you got like Bank of America, they will beat the life out of you.
Yeah.
They will charge so much if you overdraft. I overdrafted the other day by accident. And luckily I have a credit union, so I didn't get fucked.
Yep.
But like if I was Bank of America, they would hunt me down for all I got. You know what I'm saying? CFPB is very important. But the broader point when it comes to like people falling on hard times, having to use Medicaid or you know whatever other welfare program, SNAP for example, they wouldn't have to do that if we just had universal social safety nets.
Crazy.
Like if we had a universal healthcare system, people wouldn't need to be worried about getting bankrupted if they get sick or get a rare disease or their kid gets sick and needs some kind of treatment or whatever. They would just have access to that stuff and they wouldn't have to worry about, for example, losing their job. Losing their job meaning basically that they lose their entire livelihood.
It is absolutely insane that health insurance is even tied to employment in like any way, shape, or form. You know how fucking expensive health insurance is if you're like not employed traditionally, if you're self-employed? That shit's fucked up.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. And then you get fired and you have COBRA benefits. COBRA's stupid expensive. Like,
I don't even think Republicans fuck with COBRA either.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, because you should be employed. Work will set you free. Like, work gives you dignity. I can't believe he said that.
Yeah. Life is for living, dog.
That's what I mean. Like, I'm not trying to just like be a wage slave my entire life. I like free time. I like reading books.
I love leisure.
I like reading books now. I just finished Wuthering Heights, and nice. I gotta say, I hate J.D. Vance and fucking Mike Johnson and Trump and all the people involved in this administration, much like Heathcliff hates everybody in that goddamn book.
That dude's a hater, and I loved it.
I fuck with it. He hates passionately and viciously.
Yeah.
Ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous. But we just talked about how they want to go after SNAP and Medicare and Medicaid and the ACA right now. Mm-hmm. Republicans, specifically Mike Johnson, are trying to say that they don't want to touch Medicare and Social Security, but it's going to be real fucking hard to cut $2 trillion in spending from these mandatory programs without touching those programs or completely and entirely dismantling others.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also just don't believe them. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't. You should never believe a Republican when they go out and they publicly say that they don't want to touch Social Security, because it has been an open secret for the last, fucking 100 years that Republicans, when they're not in public or when they think the eyes aren't on them, actively lobby as hard as they can to get Social Security benefits reduced or taken away.
Yeah.
Undisputable fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah, every single year they try to raise the retirement age.
Exactly.
And that's a cut to Social Security.
In March 2024, the Republican Study Committee released a version of the budget that would raise the retirement age to 69. That's crazy. That is a Social Security cut.
Yeah.
I think I was listening to a Sam Cedar segment with some Social Security. Sam Cedar, Social Security nerd. He was also with some other Social Security.
Well, because he was in the trenches back when they were. Yeah. That was literally on the chopping block. Yeah.
Exactly. So he was saying that every time you raise the retirement age by a year, that is a 7% cut to benefits. Mm-hmm. Republicans propose a 14% cut to your Social Security benefits, and I don't understand why people don't scream about that.
And it's crazy for Social Security, especially because that's just a retirement program.
Yep.
We pay into that as youngsters.
It's like a 401k, but guaranteed.
Working in the market, but better than a 401k.
Yeah.
It's not subject to the influences of the market.
Exactly.
We're paying into this fund, and then the expectation is that you get it when you're old because other people are paying into it.
Yep.
And I get it. There's an issue with solvency. They're worried. I don't know how genuine it is, but they're worried, quote unquote, that Social Security won't be able to pay out the full amount. It'll have to dip down to 80% or something like that.
But it's that's not bankruptcy like they continually frame it as.
Yeah, it's insolvency. They just can't meet their obligations. But the way you solve that is so obviously raising the cap at which it's taxed.
Eliminating the cap. There is no reason that if you make more than $174,000 per year, you're not subject to the same Social Security tax rate. In fact, the richer you are, the less of a real portion of your income, the less of a percentage of your income goes to Social Security tax. Mm-hmm. You could literally solve the problem right there.
Yeah.
There's no reason that Elon Musk should be paying the same amount of Social Security tax as a doctor.
Yeah, and it's I get that the argument is that Social Security is just meant to be a retirement program, so you shouldn't have to pay into it more if you're not going to get it back later on. But I don't know, consider it a fucking riot tax.
Yeah.
People are gonna riot in the streets if they can't stop working.
They oughta.
Yeah.
They oughta if you raise my retirement age to 69, nice. If you raise my retirement age to 69, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
I'm already never gonna be able to retire, but I would at least like to be able to collect Social Security.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't do this to people and expect that they'll just sit idly by. I mean, look at France, right? A few years ago, they tried to change the pension requirements and stuff.
Yeah, they tried to raise the retirement age.
And something Elon Musk advocated for, by the way. And they were in the streets burning cars.
Yeah.
Like the Eagles just won.
And that's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
We should turn the entire fucking country into the Eagles fucking after the Super Bowl win.
Yeah.
If they raise the retirement age. Something they explicitly want to do every year, they just lie to you about. Mm-hmm. And then you have fuckers like Ron Johnson who get out there and campaign on it and still win for some reason, which is insane to me.
I don't get it.
But do not believe them when they say they don't want to touch Social Security. It's the most popular program in the damn country. Mm-hmm. That's why they say that.
Yeah.
They're going to raise the retirement age, or they're going to try like hell to raise the retirement age to pay for $60,000 for the richest fucker you don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
What a world we live in. What a country we have, man.
It's terrible. Social Security is good. I
Social
like
Security
it.
is a great program, foundational program. The less Social Security you have, the more seniors die.
I think we should lower the retirement age.
I think so too. Mm-hmm. I think we should just get it.
Lower it to 24.
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should lower the retirement age to 18. You immediately start collecting Social Security, and it's just UBI.
Mm-hmm. Hey man, maybe one day.
Hey, UBI for seniors works.
It does.
It literally works. It's fucking whatever though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? On another note, Republicans love to talk about Democrats are the deficit hawks, but the Republican House version of the budget would authorize a $4 trillion increase to the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where's fucking Chip Roy when you need him?
That's what I'm saying. Chip Roy, the last Actually, I thought about that when I was doing research last night. I was like, okay, Chip Roy surely should be like coming in and
showing up to Congress with a gun, probably.
How these tax cuts are bad because of what they'll do. And you know what his response to like increasing deficit spending by 4.5 trillion was by?
What did he say?
He said, actually, we should cut entitlements by 2.5 trillion. He said 2 trillion, that's too little. We should do 2.5 trillion.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember he's evil.
So it's like, I thought he was going to be like, principled in one way, shape, or form. But no, maybe this stuff won't go through because he wants Social Security to just be gone. And in a way, that'll be the silver lining. I don't know. Budget reconciliation is a weird process.
Yeah, I did see a stat that like Republicans, when they have control of the House, haven't passed a budget in like 10 years without Democratic help.
Yeah.
So they're going to need Democrats at some point because they can't get a grip on their
Jeffries
own.
will give it to him.
Yeah. Well, they have a mandate.
That's the sad reality of the fact is I have absolutely no faith that Hakeem Jeffries can get his party in line and stop people from crossing party lines to vote the Republican budget through.
Yeah.
I just don't. Hakeem Jeffries himself might even fucking vote for it. That guy sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, it does, budget bills for the government do have to start in the House. So like, they got to get over their hurdles with Chip Roy before they can really do anything.
And there's like a solid, 13 Republicans that are very much like no debt ceiling raise whatsoever. Like they're hardliners about it.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if we can count on them in this.
I don't think we can. I'd be surprised if they're not doing fucking black magic in the basement of that room right now.
Mike Johnson's got like what, a 2-seat majority or some shit like that?
3-seat. Yeah. I think it's like 219 to 216 right now.
Right. So you only need a few people to vote no.
Yeah.
Democrats, if you can make that shake, I'll have some hope. That'll be a real opposition party right there. You know, just get the guy. There was a guy who filibustered Chris Vought's nomination. Did we talk about Russ
that?
Vought, yeah, but then he got appointed anyway.
But like at least he fucking tried. Like,
yeah, they filibustered for like a whole 24 hours.
Traditional filibuster. Yeah, we said, "Get me up there. I'll talk about JJK." I'll talk about my theories for a while. But man, just do something, man. Yeah. I feel like I gotta constantly poke him to get him to do anything.
Yeah, really can't count on these dudes for literally anything.
You can't, man. It sucks.
Can't even count on our own Democrats. That fucking the minimum wage cuts we talked about like 2 weeks ago.
Yep,
that shit went through. Democrats voted for it.
The fucking minimum wage. Yeah. The Michigan one.
Yeah, like how minimum wage is gonna be increased, and then like,
they let Republicans tack on the no minimum wage increase.
Yeah.
Damn, I
think minimum wage will increase. It'll just take longer, but the tipped wage isn't gonna increase.
At least the sick shit passed.
Oh, that's still up in the air.
Oh, it is? Yeah. I thought it fully passed.
No,
I thought it was being implemented on the 21st.
Well, the Supreme Court issued their ruling, Supreme Court of Michigan.
Yeah.
And then the state government is trying to like stop it, I guess, even Democrats. The sick policy, the paid sick leave thing still hasn't been decided by the state government. They still have time to act. So they might do something to stop it.
That's
but
crazy.
the tipped wage is not increasing.
When I say the courts are stupid, nobody fucking listens to me. But as soon as conservatives get into power, the court doesn't even exist, as we'll talk about in a little bit. But the Senate version of the budget also moved out of committee this week, and there is like a little bit of drama here. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, there was some debate amongst Republicans on how they would get everything done. They wanted either one big beautiful bill, like Trump said, which is stuffing everything in budget reconciliation, because for budget reconciliation, you only need just a straight majority.
51,
you only need 51 to be able to pass things, just a straight majority in the House. You don't got to worry about filibuster bullshit. Or they would pass two bills, one budget reconciliation and the other a normal filibusterable bill with like the less contentious concerns, because they would need 7 Democrats to flip?
7, yeah.
For it to be able to pass?
And that would be the border bill because Alyssa Slotkin and Gary Peters.
They already passed the Lake and Riley Act, so like border shit's just going through anyway.
We need to get a good senator for 26, dog. Like, Gary Peters is not running for re-election. And interesting time to chicken out.
He's really acting like he's not running for re-election either, just kowtowing.
Yeah, exactly. Betraying his voters.
That guy sucks now.
Yeah,
that guy absolutely sucks now. But either way, while the House budget includes the Tax Cuts and Job Acts extension, the Senate version of the budget does not. So there may be some contention there. But instead, it includes a $150 billion increase to defense spending and a $175 billion for border security, among other things. So
maybe he will get the wall.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's interesting that the House and Senate are at odds when it comes to the taxes and tax cuts and whatnot. Hopefully the Senate does something good and stops them from extending the Trump tax cuts.
Yeah. The government's out of money like March 7th or some shit?
Oh, yeah. We're also about to approach the debt ceiling, so this shit is on.
The debt ceiling is up. I thought it was just the government shutdown was coming. Is it both?
Because didn't they?
I can't remember.
Didn't they kick the debt ceiling down?
Yeah. I think it's the debt ceiling is coming up due in March as well. I know they got to make a budget, but yeah.
Yeah, it's either government shutdown or debt ceiling. Debt ceiling
or
way,
both.
Or worth. Yeah, government shutdown way better than debt ceiling crash.
Relative.
But, you know, maybe the Democrats will have some balls and crash the global economy to get one over on Trump.
They should press the button.
They should do the accelerationist thing.
No, they won't.
No, and they shouldn't.
These sacred halls.
They are.
Yeah.
They're sacred and they demand respect. You know
right.
what I'm saying? This stuff should get ironed out over the next, like, I guess, 2 fucking weeks.
Yeah.
It's going to the House floor for debate. I think they're not in session this week, though.
Man, get back to work.
They never work. They love to get up there and talk about how fucking working from home is immoral and whatnot. What are they doing ever?
They already work 3 days a week. It's just Tuesday through Thursday.
That's ridiculous.
Unless like the leader in either chamber says that like you got to stay longer.
That's how I'm trying to have
which
it.
happens sometimes, but it's exactly.
That's like, God damn.
I'm trying to have it less than that, to be honest.
Real as hell.
Yeah.
And so should you all. That's how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
God damn.
Anyways, does that wrap up the budget conversation?
That wraps up the budget conversation. I'm gonna be very interested to see like what actual line items come out of this. Interested to see them increase the tax breaks for people making $5 billion and more, and then increase my taxes personally.
I'm trying to get into that bracket.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be
trying to get to the point where I make so much that I have to pay less in taxes.
How many people pay us on Patreon? So if each of you donated like fucking $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month, I think we
subscription costs going up.
Guys, Trumpflation is hitting.
We are adjusting Patreon tiers to the price of eggs. We're gonna
have an egg tier.
We're gonna have a price of egg adjustment for our Patreon tiers. That you have to pay.
We got a cola. We have a cola negotiated into our contract with you guys. Like, it's got to happen.
Yeah, maybe we introduce like a $1 tier, and it just title it "Eggs Are Too Expensive." We'll think about it.
It might have to happen, guys.
We'll talk with the cabal about it. Anyways. Bask in the glorious light of Hiddo merchandise.
Absolutely.
We have so much on offer that you can find right now at headintheoffice.com. We got stickers, we got shirts, we got hoodies, we got hats, we got everything you could possibly imagine. And it's divine, folks.
It's beautiful.
And it's one of the best ways you can support the show. So go and get some merch, bathe in the glory of the radiant Hiddo light, and support the show.
Support the show. We've got a variety of different colors. We've got blacks, we've got grays, and we've got green like money, most importantly. We love money here on this podcast.
So head over to headintheoffice.com, support the show, and get yourself some merch. We got to talk about the judicial branch.
God, so much has happened.
My favorite branch of government.
Honestly, the news pertaining to like courts and just the judiciary this week has made me question my own beliefs about the judiciary.
I was chewing on the rule of law.
I was
over the past week.
Because throughout the Biden administration, I dedicated a lot of time on this show to talking about how they're doing nothing, and the courts are doing bad things explicitly. It's an entirely captured institution, ideologically captured by the right, when it's supposed to be apolitical. Even though that was fucking stupid that they thought that it would ever be apolitical in the first place, but. Whatever.
Yeah.
And now I'd be questioning the length at which I wanted Biden to act.
Well, yeah, and as we'll get into, I think the problem is that no one ever violates court orders to do good stuff.
Yeah, literally.
They could, but they don't. Like it just doesn't happen for good stuff. So a running theme of Trump's administration this time around has been announcing these sweeping changes like freezing federal funding or cutting off NIH grants or doing a hostile takeover of the Treasury, only for federal courts to come in and block the move, put on a stay, and make it so they can't do what they were trying to do. This has been very frustrating. This has been very frustrating for Trump and Musk. It's not been a good time for them, and they're getting angry about it. I got a quote from those two, and also, we do have a vice president right now.
Surprisingly, I keep forgetting.
J.D. Vance will occasionally poke his head out, say some dumb shit, and then hide again.
World's most uncharismatic man right there.
Or they'll send him to Europe, and he'll just say Russia shit.
Yeah, world's lamest loser.
With eyeliner.
The fucking eyeliner throws me off every time. Dude. And it's like, what are you doing?
I'm cool with doogies and makeup. Like, do whatever you want.
Oh, it fucks on people who are cool and good and righteous.
Yeah, but like he's evil.
Exactly.
So I hate on him for it. J.D. Vance said, quote, and this is a tweet, of course, if a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general and how to use their discretion as a prosecutor, that is also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. Yes, they are.
Dog, whose job is it to determine what powers are legitimate and what powers are not legitimate? That is quite literally the role of the judiciary.
Like, that's like Marbury v. Madison type shit.
Yeah. And Also, a judge absolutely can tell a general what they can and cannot do during war. We have war courts, we have military tribunals, and a judge absolutely can help to define what is and does not fall into prosecutorial discretion and what prosecutors can and can't do. Judges are there to interpret the laws and the bounds of the law.
Yeah.
That's why they exist, and that's a good thing.
That's like the original purpose, like Federalist Papers type shit. Like, that's like Hamilton writing, like, this is what there's, you know what I mean?
And like, that's another reason I hate this administration. You got me defending the founders.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough out here.
You got me defending those guys on the every bill but the 20.
So, yeah, J.D. Vance dropping just a stupid fucking line. Like, that is literally the purpose of checks and balances.
Yes.
Like, as originally envisioned
Yes.
by James Madison.
That is very much the Andrew Jackson, the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
Yeah.
That's actually your job.
Now, Musk, with a similar thing, said, if any judge anywhere can stop every presidential action everywhere, we do not live in a democracy. So apparently, democracy is when presidents are like unstoppable God King emperors or something.
Me when I'm a fucking dumbass.
Yeah.
Me when I'm a fucking dumbass who came up by immoral means, emerald apartheid mines, and never was ever good.
Well, that's like, they wouldn't have said this shit for Joe Biden.
No.
They would have been like, no, a federal court should be able to stop the tyranny of the majority.
That's exactly what they did say. Have you ever seen that fucking picture that the Chainsaw Man fucking author drew of Captain America, where he's got the fucking star it's like this grotesque version of Captain America with guns and the star going through his fucking jaw, just impaling his face. They act like Joe Biden was moving through the federal government like that. They acted like he was the fucking Terminator running through and destroying institutions that made eggs less expensive. And then Trump goes and does this and it's, oh yeah, fucking he's got a mandate.
Yeah.
This is what I voted for. Brother, you can't do that.
Well, speaking of Trump, he recently tweeted yesterday, quote, he who saves the country does not violate any law.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's genuinely scary.
He's quoting Napoleon, by the way, Napoleon Bonaparte.
That's like one of history's villains.
Yeah.
Republicans got a big problem with quoting history's villains in like a good way to justify things that they're doing.
And it's like, it's a stupid fucking principle.
Absolutely.
What do you mean you didn't yes, you're violating laws. Just own it, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Why you gotta be a bitch about it?
Yeah. Now, a few notes I want to talk about the rule of law.
I do. It's important, actually.
The first note, obviously, is that this is exactly how our system of checks and balances works. Like, even if you don't fuck with it, even if you got criticisms of it, which we certainly do, which we'll probably go over, this is literally how it's designed to work.
Yeah.
Like, courts step in when they think Congress or the president oversteps their jurisdiction and puts a stop to it. Like, that's literally the purpose of the federal court system.
Good system in that purpose.
Yeah. If the courts stop unconstitutional actions, or state governments can sue the federal government if they think they have some kind of claim, like we saw with like the NIH funding, for example. But there's a deeper question about the rule of law, right? Like, we're asking, when is it morally justifiable to defy courts? And I think my answer boils down basically to, it depends on what the court is trying to do.
Real.
Like, for example, I'd argue that the Supreme Court sort of overstepped their boundaries or even violated the rule of law with the Dobbs v. Jackson ruling, right? They were not honoring precedent that they had set before, that had been set and reset. It was basically super precedent. Or SCOTUS was the organization that stood in the way of outlawing child labor for quite a long time.
That's crazy.
Like, the Supreme Court is known for doing terrible things. Some people, like us, advocated for Biden to ignore what the courts had said, basically ignore the rule of law, and cancel student debt anyway. We said that was within his power. The left argued for that. He obviously didn't do it. Now the right wants Trump and Musk to defy the courts, ignore the rule of law, to gut the federal government, which it seems like they're going to do.
Yeah.
And so the question is, when can we say it's morally permissible for an executive to violate the rule of law? And I think it comes down to the Hito maxim. Good things are good and bad things are bad.
That's how I live my life, and that's how we should all live our life. Like, it's a perfect statement, really. Hemingway loved to talk about the perfect sentence.
Yeah.
I think we have it right there. Good things are good and bad things are bad.
Yeah.
Straight up. Because I was kind of in a crisis this week thinking about all this stuff. Like,
I was
okay.
too. I'm glad you independently came to this conclusion.
I was sitting there like, am I just not like a morally consistent like actor in this? Am I not as consistent as I thought? Am I not as steadfast in like my beliefs about how things should be done?
And we got to be honest with you guys about that.
Exactly.
We're being honest.
And while it does come down to good things are good, bad things are bad, I think the things that we advocated for, like Joe Biden trying to do student debt relief, even though the court said no, are way different than what's going on with this administration. And we kind of touched on it last week. There's a base set of rules that we all have to buy into, a social contract, if you will, that kind of underscore everything that we do for society to just function at a very base level. when we advocated for Joe Biden to ignore what the court said about how it's unconstitutional for the president to cancel debt, we did so because that existed in a much more gray area than the things that Trump is trying to do.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
The president, as it was understood, has the power to direct the Treasury to do things. There were complicated ways that student loans and student loan debt was calculated and accounted for that we thought gave the president the authority to do these things. There were some other things that question was genuinely a vague question of whether or not the president could do things. And then when he was told he wasn't, we said, all right, maybe Joe Biden should just do it anyway, or he should advocate and he should try everything he can do to look for other ways to do it that wouldn't, I guess, blatantly violate the Supreme Court's precedent. That is kind of the extent to which our fuck the court advocacy lied. If the court was out here and said that sodomy is illegal, I think you can flat out just ignore that.
Yeah.
Because that goes so far into another direction that it becomes absurd and sort of violates the social contract in of itself because of how bad that ruling is. Good things are good, bad things are bad.
Yeah. Well, and that's sort of the point that I wanted to get to, is that if you hear us say good things are good and bad things are bad, then your conclusion might be, well, then everything's just subjective at the end of the day.
What is a good thing?
Right. It's all a sham. Rule of law isn't this objective standard. It's just subjective at the end of the day. And I'd say, yeah.
And the rule of law is already kind of subjective.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, is the rule of law is our best attempt at establishing standards and guidelines for the use of executive power.
Yeah.
That's what the rule of law fundamentally is. But laws can be morally unjust. Courts can issue rulings that we think are out of line with the rule of law. And at the end of the day, any exercise of power is going to have to be justified on its own merits.
Yeah.
And we can delude ourselves into thinking that we've created these vast, complex, sort of sacred systems for justifying the use of power. But again, at the end of the day, you got to justify the use of power based on what the use of power is trying to do.
Yeah.
I think the rule of law is certainly superior to any other system that humans have created throughout time and history. It's better than the rule of men, as in monarchs just deciding on a whim what's legal and what's illegal by decree. But it's just that. It's a human construction, and human constructions can be wrong. And at the end of the day, you have to justify what you're doing on its merits, on its own merits alone.
And also, when we're talking about the judiciary and judges who are issuing opinions and creating new standards, new precedent, there's a lot of kind of luck involved in what actually becomes the rule of law. Yeah. You have the law as written, and then you have the law as it's understood and established through case law, which is the actual law that we have to follow on the day-to-day. That's the actual standards, is case law and precedent that's set by judges in federal courts, appellate courts, the Supreme Court, even sometimes, even though I hate them.
Yeah.
And that can be subjective, and sometimes those rulings on their own merits are just explicitly bad. We have had Supreme Court precedent overturned before. In some places, it was a good thing to overturn it. In some places, it was a bad thing to overturn it. These things can all be argued. And because I'm kind of thinking about my, fuck the Constitution, blah, 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 we should do this. But, I fuck with the freedom of speech. I fuck with these base level things. I do not fuck with perversions of niche provisions within the Constitution to justify a measure that would stop people's lives from getting better.
Yeah.
That's where my advocacy lies, and that's why I feel like I can still say that I'm consistent on these issues while standing against Trump and J.D. Vance saying no to the courts.
I mean, we said it last week, the legitimacy of any system is based on its purpose. And the purpose of the rule of law, or our system of checks and balances, or constitutionalism generally, is to, as I said, put guidelines in the exercise of executive power. Or the exercise of any power, really, whether it comes from the courts or Congress or whatever it may be. And if the system of rule of law, or if the Constitution stops serving its purpose, it loses some of its legitimacy.
Yeah.
The rule of law is not this objective, sacred, traditional thing that we just found out in nature. It is a human creation that should be subservient to human needs.
And it is perverted all the time by quote-unquote activist judges.
And
you know what I'm saying?
It's not ideology-free either. It favors the status quo. Our Constitution is one of the hardest to amend in the entire world. It is designed to favor what currently exists. That's not an ideology-free system in any way. And a lot of the time, exercises of power do really just come down to the person holding the power.
Yep.
We talk all the time about how consequential it was that Trump got 3 Supreme Court appointments. If he didn't get those appointments, I mean, Biden's presidency looks completely different.
Absolutely.
Or whoever comes after Hillary Clinton in that scenario looks completely different. And I know it's sort of unsatisfying, especially from a materialist perspective. But it does often just come down to if the person in power is going to respect the rule of law. And the issue talking about this from a leftist perspective is that, as I sort of alluded to, there are so few examples, maybe no examples, of the head executive abusing the rule of law or ignoring it for a good reason.
Yep.
Like, Joe Biden didn't ignore the rule of law.
No.
But we've had many presidents, Andrew Jackson, Donald Trump, that have ignored the rule of law to do terrible, atrocious things.
Yeah, like genocide.
Yes.
Like, it's the only time motherfuckers ever get the balls to ignore the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, you can't make millions of people's lives better by canceling student debt. Oh, okay, I guess I'll try a different avenue.
Supreme Court says, hey, maybe don't slaughter indigenous tribes, and Andrew Jackson's like, try to stop me. Like,
what enforcement mechanism?
The judicial system doesn't have an enforcement mechanism. Well, the enforcement mechanism is the president.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the trouble talking about it in this way is that there are no real examples we can point to of the executive doing something good while ignoring the rule of law. It doesn't really ever happen that way.
Like, we've always advocated for presidents to dip into the gray. Not even just flat out ignore things, but dip into the gray, maybe try different avenues to do student debt forgiveness, or fire the fucking parliamentarian so you can have $15 minimum wage because the parliamentarian is a fake position that you can appoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I fuck with dipping in the gray to do good things. I don't fuck with completely throwing the system out to do what is quite literally fascist, to do a complete hostile takeover of the federal government, to fucking make more kids with cancer die by defunding cancer research. That is how these things should be framed, and that's how the Democrats should be attacking these.
Yeah. And, like, I think it should be a part of the argument that Trump is violating the rule of law. Like, you should point out that he is completely ignoring court orders or procedures or the fact that it's Congress's job to establish departments and agencies. You should definitely point that out, but that should not be the main thrust of the argument. The main thrust of the argument should be that Trump is trying to kill children by cutting off funding for Medicaid, that Republicans are trying to cut off funding for medical research, and that's also going to kill people. The main thrust of the argument's got to be that what Trump is doing is bad for life, not that he is just abusing our system. Because, as we said last week, if you say that Trump's ignoring the rule of law, people are going to say, well, that's fine. What's the rule of law done for me lately?
Exactly. People are going to say, well, exactly, he's ignoring the rule of law. That has been bad, and he's ignoring the rule of law to do good things. But he's not. He's doing it to do bad things.
Yeah. But I think it comes, if you were wondering how we square the circle, I think it comes down to, like, if the court said tomorrow, like, Plessy v. Ferguson's actually cool, and we had a Democratic president that was like, fuck that, I'm going to crack down on anyone that's, like, doing segregation, I'd be fine with that.
I would also be fine with that because that is in greater service. That is in service of such a great public good that is, like, fine. Yeah. None of this is in any way you spin it in service of a great public good unless you are just explicitly being lied to and parroting lies.
Yeah. I'm interested in politics for its uses of life, for the way that it can serve us, not for the procedure of it all. It just
not for the sacred halls of it all.
Yeah, the procedure in the sacred halls should be made subservient to human need at the end of the day. So I think that's a consistent argument.
Yeah, talking about a constitutional crisis. I'm having a personal crisis over here.
Yeah.
I'm being shaken.
Obviously, like, we're not going to get any abuses of the rule of law leftistly. It's just not going to happen anytime soon. So, again, it should be a part of the argument. You should bring it up if you're talking to people that care about this kind of stuff. Or, Democrats, if they're talking about it, should be like, Donald Trump is not honoring the fact that Congress gets to decide what departments exist, that sort of thing. But the main thrust should be that Trump will kill people.
And it's also like, aside from entirely and completely like egregious abuses of power that are undeniable to the vast majority of the American public, nothing is ever going to be changed to strengthen checks and balances or stop people from abusing niche rules unless Democrats get in there and do it too. Conservatives are not going to limit themselves if they're not seeing that Democrats aren't taking the same measures because they're like principally or aesthetically opposed to it. And, conservatives are never going to change the rules surrounding the parliamentarian if Democrats don't at least try to change the parliamentarian to get $15 minimum wage. Conservatives are never going to get together in a bipartisan bill to strengthen checks and balances between the judiciary and the executive if Democrats aren't also willing to, bend executive power and dip into the gray.
Yeah.
If one side is doing it, the other side should do it for like some good things. Because outside of like the fucking Holocaust, they're not gonna accept that what they did was so awful that they'll never try it again if they get the position to.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I was also sort of foreseeing an argument where if we allow like Joe Biden to ignore court order and cancel student debt, even though the court told him not to, then we're just like inviting that in the opposite direction.
Nothing changes.
But it's like, Trump's doing that anyway.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Because like
power is always going to be abused. I would just like to see power used to do something good.
And
it just doesn't happen.
If both people are abusing power, at least you have a bipartisan excuse to like limit it.
Yeah.
Conservatives will never limit themselves if Democrats don't at least try.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Didn't conservatives get rid of like a filibuster for something?
No, I think it was actually Democrats that got rid of the filibuster for judge appointments.
Oh,
because
that's
they were
right.
blocking
That's
so
right.
many of Obama judges. But then they ended up not really being able to make use of it because they lost the Senate in 2010.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And a lot of Democrats, like you had motherfuckers like Joe Lieberman, who are basically Republicans by today's standards, at least. So that's the rule of law for you, folks.
That's theory.
Trump was never, or I should say, Biden was never dropping shit like any man who saves his country violated no law.
I think I can't even say what conservatives would have done to Biden if he fucking tweeted that. You know what I mean? Like, again, Biden would say the most banal thing and he'd fucking half say it and then fall asleep in the middle of it. And conservatives acted like he was just taking a fucking sledgehammer to every American institution. Like he was personally going and ripping money out of your fucking pockets. And then Trump gets to quote a historical villain. And nothing happens.
They said shit like Joe Biden was quoting Mao when he said women hold up half the sky or whatever. It's like, that's clearly not... Even if he was quoting Mao, which I'm not going to believe for a second, even if he knew Mao said something similar to that, that's a pretty banal quote. Trump is literally saying, I'm going to break the law. Like,
Trump is literally saying, I'm the God Emperor, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm saving the country.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be real and cool if I said it, though.
Dude, didn't they have to banish Napoleon twice?
Yeah.
And eventually they stuck him on an island?
Yes.
So he couldn't get back?
I think he still made it back from the island, too.
Like, come on,
Or some shit. I don't know. I don't fucking...
Napoleon was pretty bad. Pretty evil.
He was, like, awful.
I wonder where he's learning about these historical figures. Because first it was McKinley.
Yeah.
Which I know he didn't know about before.
Yeah.
That had to be like a Heritage Foundation thing. And now he's quoting Napoleon.
That's also got to be a Heritage Foundation thing.
Who told him that quote?
Those guys are like nerds about fascism and, you know, the people that history has recognized as evil.
Yeah.
They love for some reason.
I bet like Stephen Miller said that quote and Trump was like, I'm tweeting that.
Like, that's fucking gas.
And they've doubled down on it too. Like
they doubled down on it?
Trump, like, they did the thing where they like screenshotted it and then put a picture of him and then posted it on their Instagram. It's like he's putting his name on this. It was the presidential photo where he's looking all scary with the light like under his face. You know,
that's such a bad picture.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks freaky though.
It looks even worse for JD Vance because he sucks and he's evil.
Did you see the photo of RFK?
Yes,
he got
dude.
confirmed, like hiding in the darkness.
All you can see is his forehead and like a little like sliver of light on his face,
shrouded in darkness.
That's like all for one. You know what I'm saying?
Like, why is this administration, every image or video or whatever this administration puts out looks so purposefully evil?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
And it doesn't even look like cool. You know what I mean? It just looks like ominous in a very scary way.
Yeah, like RFK is going to hunt you down and make sure you're not eating, I don't know.
He's going to make sure your kid's not vaccinated.
Yeah. He's going to make sure you don't have fluoride in your water. Yeah, make sure your kid doesn't get the COVID shot.
That's so fucking crazy. RFK making a huge fucking stink about and RFK types making a big stink about like fluoride being in your water while they also want to work for the guy who is gutting the EPA so that he can put chemicals in your water.
Mm-hmm.
One way we're getting chemicals in our water, I'd rather it be fluoride than, I don't know, fucking paraformaldehyde.
Well, yeah, they're taking the fluoride out, and RFK is going to make you drink the blue dye stuff that he puts in his water. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
There was that clip
shit
of him
carcinogenic?
Yes. He was like on a plate. Yeah, not FDA approved, which that probably won't exist.
Guys, cancer
anymore.
is back in like such a big way.
But RFK was like putting that shit into his water, and people were like, "What the hell?" And he was like, "Well, it's healthy."
We were making like headways in cancer research, and now that shit's back in a big way. Mm-hmm. We truly are in a war on cancer, and we're starting to lose these battles.
We're joining the side of cancer. Anyways, getting into some extras from this week, we got a little bit to talk about here. First of all, Trump in the cuck chair. What do we make of this?
That shit is so fucking crazy.
I genuinely don't know what conclusion to come to in regards to Trump's relationship with Elon Musk.
And you know what?
I don't know what to make of that.
Like, this has got to be like, I know we made this prediction in 2023, like after the election when we were like, you know, coping and doing our postmortems and whatnot. And we said like, you know, Musk is in a fake role. He won't have any real power. I think I still stand by the idea that was the rational assumption to make, like with the information we had back then. I don't think anyone could have realistically predicted what we've seen in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, complete dismantling. It's been not even a month yet.
Like, he has an unprecedented amount of power for a private individual or a special government employee, as they're trying to classify him
Imagine
as.
George Soros, like, gutting the federal government. Or I guess they would think he would do the opposite. Imagine George Soros appointing every bureaucrat himself. You know what I mean?
I think that's analogous.
Yeah.
I think that holds up. But, like, I think that's got to be one of our worst predictions still, that Elon Musk wasn't going to do anything. Because now, like, he's the president.
Yeah.
Like, Trump is sitting at the Resolute desk behind the desk. Elon and his kid are also behind that desk, and Trump's not saying a word.
Yeah.
And the press is only asking Elon questions.
It was Elon's press conference in the Oval Office where Trump is sitting down and Elon's kid is running around.
And Elon, he's literally picking his nose behind the fucking Resolute desk. He's telling Trump he's not the president. I hope I'm still going to believe it because if it's my agenda.
Well, and it's like, this is a minor thing. But Elon Musk was the only dude in that room without like formal attire on.
Yeah.
And I usually don't read into this kind of shit because like I don't really care for dress codes and that
good
kind of thing.
People are good and bad people are bad.
Well, it's not even like on that type of shit. It's just like I find it weird that all of Trump's guys like Stephen Miller and all the others in the room are in, full suits, adhering to the Oval Office dress code. Trump, of course, is always in a suit. And Elon Musk is kind of just in like street clothes.
Once again, it's people breaking rules or breaking decorum only for bad things. Or only bad people breaking rules and decorum in this instance, like John Fetterman in the Senate.
Yeah, I feel like Trump's gotta like feel some type of way about that though.
Oh yeah, he's like a businessman. He's like a professional guy.
He's like a maximalist.
He doesn't step out in things that aren't like opulent.
Mm-hmm.
How does he not like hate him?
Yeah,
you think he's really like cucked by what, the $200 million Elon Musk donated?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, or maybe everyone around Trump is like Elon's doing good things.
And he's like, oh, yeah, sure, he's doing good. He looks like Trump himself looks like he lost the sauce when he's signing these executive orders. He's just getting them because people are literally just handing him orders that he's never read, doesn't know anything about. They just tell him, like, this is going to ban federal funding from going to COVID-19 vaccine requirements in schools.
Yeah, no,
and he's like, oh, okay, I'll sign that shit.
He'll literally say, like, what is this?
Yep. He's like, oh, what's this one? Oh, okay, yeah, that's very good. It's going to help a lot of people.
But, like, what is going on here? Like, there were some libs that were, like, doing the whole lip reading thing where it's like his kid told Trump to shush and that like he's not the real president and whatnot.
Yeah, I believe that. I want to believe that.
Like maybe I don't fucking know. I can't read lips, so it doesn't really matter. But it's like like his fucking kid running around the White House being used as a human shield. What's happening here?
That is insane. And it's crazy. I saw this analysis, I think, on Twitter, but it's like, if it was a woman who was up there who had 13 kids and was bringing her kid to the White House for the press conference, conservatives would be fucking yelling at her.
Tear her apart.
They would be tearing her apart. Like, nobody else could get away with that. And that's kind of like a Libby thing to like do, but like, it's very true, you know?
Yeah, he's fathered, 13 kids now at this point? That's crazy.
Again, father, very loose application of that word. Don't most of his kids hate him? I know, he, like, straight up one of his, I think his trans kid.
His trans daughter doesn't like him.
Yeah, just straight, because he's an awful person.
Yeah, and this kid's name is like X.
This kid is the AX-12 Ash Archangel, named after the fucking fighter jet.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. Some people have been comparing the images of like Musk with his kid and Trump in the Oval Office to like that famous image where the kid is under JFK's desk. Because JFK was young enough to have kids in the Oval Office, but it's like Elon Musk is just some weird freak in the White House.
He's a special government employee.
That was like JFK's kid who, the mother of which he's married to currently.
And was that not like the president? That wasn't a press conference.
Yeah.
That's just
just an image.
That's just a father hanging out with his child, not using him as a human shield.
Yeah. It's very bizarre to me. In some other news, inflation's up.
Inflation's super up.
We could have told you just by going to the store.
Yeah, also forgot to ask, how is fucking Trump and Musk and JD Vance ignoring court orders lowering the price of eggs?
Oh, yeah, very important.
It's not.
It's literally not. We just got the January numbers.
Yep.
Which Trump immediately blamed on Joe Biden, which I'm guessing will be his strategy for the next year.
It will.
Until inflation is said to have gone down, then he'll claim a victory. There's some plausible deniability here because, of course, Biden was the president up through January 20th until Trump took over.
Trump did inherit the Biden economy, but like, I mean, as principled actors, we know that the egg prices don't really have much to do with like Trump being the president. It has a lot to do with the bird flu outbreak, has a lot to do with like tariffs maybe coming in, it has a lot to do with like, well, actually, I would be surprised if what's going on with agriculture right now isn't raising egg prices as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there probably is a direct link to Trump in a way that there wasn't to Biden.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
And of course, markets are preparing for what they think might be tariffs, but they don't really know yet.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some impact there. Time will tell. Once we get February numbers in March, we'll be able to be more determinative.
There's also like the underlying assumption and preparation of inflation by the American public, which, gives corporations the guise to raise prices arbitrarily to raise their profits, but nobody wants to talk about that. That's like the one thing Kamala Harris talked about 2 times.
Yeah. Yeah, not great.
We could have had something.
In some other news, the Associated Press was banned from the White House press pool because they said Gulf of Mexico instead of Gulf of America.
Before Trump tweeted that Napoleon quote, this was like the scariest thing to come out of this week to me.
Yeah.
That is so genuinely dystopian that the press secretary can get out there and say, it is a privilege to be in this room and ask the president questions. And if you're going to publish lies as an outlet, you won't be allowed in here.
Dog.
It is not a lie.
Could you imagine if Joe Biden banned like Peter Doocy from Fox News because he used the wrong pronouns or something like that? That would be fucking insane.
Could you imagine if they banned somebody for calling it Germany or for calling it Deutschland instead of Germany?
Mm-hmm.
Like, different places in the world have different names for things. It is not an unalienable fact that the body of water across on the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. Mm-hmm. That's not true. That's just what we call it. Mm-hmm. Not even what we call it. That's just what you call it.
That's just what they call it.
And you're trying to make me call it, but I'm not going to call it that. And shit, I'll forego my press credentials right now.
Yeah, well, and there's
the Gulf of Mexico.
There's a deeper chilling effect here too.
Yeah.
Like, sure, seems sort of banal because it's like Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico, whatever.
It doesn't matter explicitly.
Right. But now we're going to have publications that want to have access to the White House press pool that are going to be afraid to publish some things that maybe conflict with things that Trump says.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to get kicked out and lose their access. Like, access for journalism is everything.
And then get fucking replaced by a podcaster.
Yeah.
Hey, not to say that podcasters are like bad and whatnot, but
I'm not qualified to be in the White House press pool.
They would not let us in.
No.
And I think that's all you need to know.
It's not lowering the price of eggs.
It is not. It is absolutely not. And it's like, next thing you know, CNN's going to talk about how egg prices are up in February, and they're going to ban them from the fucking briefing room.
Yeah.
It is a lie. It is a fact that is Joe Biden's egg prices.
And I think Caroline Leavitt about the AP being banned said something like, you don't have a right to be here.
Yeah, she said it's a privilege to be in this room and have this amount of access.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
It's necessary for democracy, actually, to be able to ask the president questions and figure out what's going on.
What's the thing? Like the fourth estate or like the fourth branch of government is the journalists?
Something like that.
Holding the government to account. Like, it is a vital core component of democracy.
That's how civilians check
free
the government.
Media. Yeah. So bad.
Very bad.
Real bad.
Awful sentiment. Should not be allowed in some way.
But now we already talked about Eric Adams getting his case dropped. Free Eric Adams. Shout out.
Free money. Hey, it worked. Our advocacy worked.
He is beholden to nobody but the people of New York City.
Uh-huh.
He'll probably win re-election. In some international news, Trump is basically abandoning Ukraine. Yeah, he held negotiations with Putin, but not Zelensky. So, I mean, as expected.
Yeah.
The war didn't end on day one, but I'm guessing it'll end in a bad way.
Yeah.
Pretty soon.
Sounds like a lot of things are ending in a very bad way.
Yeah. You had J.D. Vance going to...
There was so much that happened this week that I forgot to look into what happened in Gaza, too.
Yeah.
Did you see what was going on? Like, I saw sparks of it throughout I should look into that more next week and talk about it as, like, a dedicated segment.
Yeah.
But I'd seen, like, ceasefire was violated. Fucking surprise, surprise.
Of course.
Then Trump said there's going to be, like, disaster in Gaza if you don't give up all the hostages by Saturday. And then I think Hamas got together with the Red Cross to do, like, a hostage deal thing and release the hostages to them. That's all conjecture, though. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, we can talk about that a bit more next week. Then, of course, you had Hegseth at NATO saying the dumb shit and then taking a drink.
Yeah.
Saying the dumb shit about how, like, fucking paper doesn't block bullets or fucking whatever.
You can't shoot treaties and negotiations. Fuck off.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
This guy is literally, we've been talking about it since we started talking. He's horny for killing and death.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking love death and war and destruction. I love destroying cultures.
Yeah. And he was talking about how the new policy is like you got to pay 5% of your GDP.
An insane amount of money.
You got to dedicate 5% of your GDP to your military spending, which the U.S. doesn't even do, by the way.
We dedicate like, what, 2 point something? Or is it 1.8?
2 or 3, something like that.
Yeah.
He says he wants like 5%. And it's like, dog, you want...
That's a fake. That's fake.
5% of like what? Finland's economy has to go to military spending? Why?
For what?
It's nonsense. Complete nonsense. And then lastly, SpaceX, surprise, surprise, landed a $40 million government contract.
Oh, who'd have thought?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Just landed a $40 million DOD contract.
You know, talking about SpaceX and contracts has got me thinking about like transparency, and it brings me back to the press conference where Elon was cucking Trump, like hardcore, and they were asking him like, "How do you hold yourself to account?" And this motherfucker goes, "I tweet.
I post on X.
I tweet.
Yeah.
I fucking get on Twitter and I tweet. I shit post. Tweeting is not accountability. Actually, I hold myself accountable." We're the most transparent organization in history because I tweet.
It's like the definition of conflict of interest.
Uh-huh.
And like he was like, sometimes I'll get things wrong. No one bats 1,000. You can like, and you should call me out on that. It's like, what? Tweet at you?
Yeah, you actually did get a lot of things wrong this week when you fired people that worked at the Nuclear Safety Commission, and now you're trying to get them back, but you can't reach them because you fired too many fucking people.
Or I heard the fork in the road email, like the government buyouts. Those are not going well. People that accepted the deal are now not getting paid.
Surprise, surprise.
So they just fucking lied about that.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
It was like questionable whether or not they would even have the funds to be able to do it. It's
not questionable if that was even like legal.
Appropriate. Yeah, that's like something Congress would have to authorize.
Mm-hmm. But SpaceX is getting a $40 million contract. Not very surprised. Elon Musk basically paying himself at this point. There was a little kerfuffle around a DoD contract
armored Teslas
that was at like $400 million. A $400 million contract. So people called this out.
Yeah.
And then the DoD immediately took the word Tesla out of the contract. And then Elon Musk said he knew nothing about it, and that's not happening now. I don't know if this was like some sort of... It wasn't an accident. Certainly wasn't an accident. They said it was initiated in September under Joe Biden. But I don't know if they mean that it's actually an accident or if they just got caught doing something very clearly corrupt.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't trust this administration at all. Yeah. So I'm going to say it's corrupt.
Yeah. Feels corrupt. Feels corrupt.
Trump said he was going to sick him. I actually texted Jeremy after we recorded the pod last week because Trump did an interview on Sunday talking about how like, oh yeah, I'm going to have Elon Musk look at the DOD after we had just talked about how they're not going after the DOD.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah, well, I did see Elon Musk quote tweet somebody who said that the DoD spends like $8,000 on their coffee makers.
That's okay. So maybe we're gonna get some real answers.
You get rid of the like 200 coffee makers around the Pentagon,
and you save half a second of the American debt.
Yeah, what, you're gonna go after the fucking like Nespresso machines?
Yep.
Yeah, you save fucking nothing. So it's still unclear to me if I don't think he's actually going to go after waste in the Pentagon. Like, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you talked about how the Senate bill is going to fund the Pentagon like $100 million more, or $100 billion more, I should say. I don't think he's actually going to go after waste in the Pentagon, but he might go after stupid shit like DEI and pronouns and coffee makers.
Woke General Mark Milley paid a transgender to come and talk to the class about DEI.
Yeah, a one-time payment of like
$5,000, and that's your tax dollars. That is 0.00001 cent coming out of your tax bill to pay for that. That's untenable.
We might get some dumb shit about coffee and DEI. But we probably will not get actual genuine waste from groups like Raytheon.
They are not holding Lockheed Martin accountable.
No, it's just not going to happen.
If the only thing they will hold Lockheed Martin accountable is like gay socks in June. That's the one thing they'll
they won't do that this time.
No, we're not going to see like anything from companies in June. So that sucks.
The one other thing that I think it was the Super Bowl interview where Trump was asked at some interview if he sees J.D. Vance as his successor, and he just flat out said no.
That's so fucking funny, man.
Just big dicking him in real time. If I was J.D. Vance, I might like commit ritualistic suicide on camera.
I mean, yeah, like that guy must have a degradation kink or something. Like I'd resign. Yeah. What do you mean no? He said no, but like maybe.
Like he pops his head out every once in a while to say some dumb shit.
Gets flamed.
Get absolutely clowned on. And then Trump says that he's not my successor.
Yeah. Look at Elon's actually doing a lot of good work over here.
Yeah. Like that's hilarious. While Elon is like meeting with heads of state.
Oh my God.
Without Trump knowing about it, in terms of him meeting with Modi from India.
That's
and meanwhile, JD Vance JD Vance went to what, Yale Law?
I think it's Yale
JD's
Law.
Got a JD. You know what I'm saying? And this dude knows what's going on. He clearly can see what's happening here. And he's getting big dicked.
He chops on Twitter and he goes, well, haha, you see, actually, if we do this thing, and then he puts a laughy emoji at the end of it and thinks he's being relatable.
And he's like, well, actually, fascism is totally legal.
I hate JD Vance.
Yeah, JD Vance sucks. The fucking worst member of the Trump administration.
Well, actually, you see, Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't that evil of a guy. You know, his people liked it. He had a mandate.
He picked the crown up from the ground, or whatever the quote is. Anyways, I think that brings us to the end of this episode today. No doom and gloom, folks.
You know, Marie Antoinette was much like the DEI heads of these institutions, and that's what we need to do. We need to have a sort of American revolution.
Let them eat cake. What's wrong with that? She was being kind. She said they can have cake.
No. She was the DEI. She was like, the people right now heading DEI institutions. Big DEI.
Well, DEI was apparently keeping the planes in the sky.
Yeah, that's what. No, that's true. That's what Marie Antoinette was, and then the French Revolution happened. Then Trump's coming through as Napoleon to
did we even
take over and big dick him.
I don't even think we talked about the Joey Manorino quote.
Joey Manorino quote? What did he do?
Well, I think 2 weeks ago when we were talking about those aviation disasters, as soon as Trump gets into office, Joey Manorino's tweeting some shit like Pete Hegseth got up every day and had sex with a man. And then he would go to work and have sex with a man. And so just a bunch of shit about gay sex. And very little about the aviation disaster. Like, he was clearly blaming the aviation disaster on Pete being gay.
Pete Buttigieg.
Pete Buttigieg.
Okay, all right.
But for some reason, like...
Yeah, he said Pete Buttigieg wakes up every morning, have sex with a man, goes to work, tries to have sex with men, he
goes
takes
home,
it in the
has
ass.
Sex with a man, yeah.
Like, dog.
And it's like a plane crashes and the first thing you think about is a dude fucking a dude. Like, chill out, man.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I can't believe we missed that one. That was like right up our alley. This is not making my eggs cheaper.
No, it's not.
Nothing is making my eggs cheaper. I got to pay $7.50 for eggs.
That's so fucked up, man. That is... What kind of country do we have?
$7.50 to catch the avian
You remember when motherfuckers used to have serious economic discussions about like the Big Mac index, about how you can like measure the economy by like the price of a Big Mac? We were about to fucking usher in the egg index.
We used to talk about tax policy, man.
I'm saying.
We used to talk about real things. We used to have a real country.
God,
we used to talk about fucking SALT deductions.
Yeah.
I'm talking about DEI. DEI in a bad way, because DEI policies are actually generally pretty good.
Yeah, they actually help a lot. You know?
So
people are still racist.
Here we are, folks. Not making my eggs cheaper.
No.
And this is the end of the episode.
It is.
So thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. I appreciate you listening all this time.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you continuing to listen to us name off the wonderful people that keep the lights on in this studio. The wonderful people that give us direct funding to keep this operation running.
Yeah, we can't rely on our George Soros grants anymore.
Yeah, we can't do it. Yeah, our indirect reimbursement rate was at like 100%, and now it's just gone.
We've gotten accused so many times by right-wingers of being like Democrat funded.
God, I wish.
You don't know how bad I need that.
You don't know how bad I wanted.
Imagine if George Soros gave us like a $1 million check. I'd put out some disgusting propaganda.
If George Soros gave me $5 million, enough money to just put it in the market and live off dividends for the rest of my life, never have to worry about anything, I would be saying vile things.
I'd be Bill Burr. If you know, you know.
I'd be going crazy out there. Yeah. I'd be speaking my mind, man. Yeah. Not that I don't speak my mind already, but
yeah. You know how we feel about the rule of law now.
Exactly.
Anyways, that's the end of our episode. We got to thank these fucking patrons.
We got to give a special thanks to our donors.
That's right.
Caden Kraut, Lord Tyler Radiant, Chris the Postman, Chrissy Beck, Dylan B., Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Taro Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W., Fergalaki, Max Vezquez, Jacob Rodgers, Colton Woodbury, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Big Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stentrum, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsfer, Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishing, Benneth Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's boyfriend, Ted Cruz's boy toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarlson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith the Grottler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gon, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Tyler Rensaw, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valinic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes,
August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Signs, Howard the Duck, Brendan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Particulon, Memfrez, Lauren, Unchrestmatic Boar, Sasquatch, Ron Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, iCrowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Kevin Kasaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Dew Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fida Hussein, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, John from Houston, Anaya, Cryel Bongi, That Art Dork, Sergeant Pookie, Connor Nix, Jordan T, Hoodie, Kim Kitsuragi, Rose Grimm, Kristen, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Daniel Stock, Dubfub, Noah Sajas, Maja What, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney, and 6-inch heels. Welcome back.
Oh, shit.
And my mom, thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. We couldn't do it without you.
Yes.
Here's to, I don't know, February.
4 more years.
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy.
Thanks for listening, everyone.